Hey, I need you to come to Havana with me. It's like, great, I have the perfect turtleneck for that. I'm going to put on this cool turtleneck. It's very inconspicuous so that when I'm lurking around fucking hospitals, no one will notice me. Merry Christmas, America.
It's the most important podcast of the year. Chris Ryan, Sean Fennessey, special guest Brian Koppelman.
Woo!
Our friend, co-creator of Billions. He's been in our lives for a long time. I told him we were doing this after we did The Godfather at the beginning of this year. And he said, I'm flying out. You're not doing this without me. I'm not allowing this podcast to happen. I was like, well, we're doing it in LA. He's like, I'm coming. Just tell me when. Give me a month's heads up. I will be there. And you flew out here for this podcast.
I did. I did, and I'm beyond moved to be here with all.
So my theory is The Godfather is the most rewatchable movie ever, and you can make a case Godfather Part II is the best movie ever. What do you think, Chris Ryan?
I'm not going to argue with you. I think Godfather II is more complex. It's riskier. It's also a little bit more adult, I think, in different ways. So I think it pushes what The Godfather did into a whole new realm in a way that no sequels really do.
Sean, you called Godfather, the original one, the greatest piece of
popular
culture
entertainment.
Yeah.
In the last 50 years.
They put that on the poster.
Yeah, they did. Thank you. Thank you to Francis for doing that for me.
Where does Part 2 stand?
Well, Part 1 is like a pop song, and you can just put it on and by the time you realize it's over, it's encapsulated so much of your feelings. And 2 is, like Chris said, it's much different. It's like more like an opera. It's deeper and longer and weirder and a bit more confusing and more emotionally complicated. And it's risky, like Chris says, like a movie like this shouldn't necessarily work. Sequels didn't work back then. They weren't a big thing. They weren't prestigious, that's for sure. And certainly not sequels like this that aspire to such greatness. So, it's one of the most amazing, not just pieces of popular entertainment, but works of art in movie history.
Koppelman?
Yeah, I think it's the best movie ever made. It's we're the best movie ever made that I've seen because Godfather 1, which is, the second or third best movie ever made, is a fable in many ways. I mean, it's King Lear, but it's also a fable. The whole story's King Lear, right, over the course of the thing, but it's fable. Don Corleone, as vicious as he can be, basically never does a bad thing by the rules of the movie. And so you're allowed to love him. Godfather 1 taps into your sense of empathy and sympathy. Godfather 2 asks much more difficult questions. Godfather 2 also forces you to put yourself in Michael Corleone's position to see if you can think the way that he does. Godfather 2 is, for me, the deepest. It unfolds and unfolds and unfolds. Yes, it's like an opera, but it's also like the best jazz album ever, where these themes are introduced and you have to try to find them. And as an artistic achievement, I think it's pretty much unmatched. And as a piece of literature that you can watch, I think it's unmatched. I think every time I watch the movie, I can find, and anyone can, not because I'm special, like if you watch the movie closely, you can find yourself taking different people's sides, understanding their journeys, hating them, loving them, and you learn something about yourself. I do. I learn something about myself every time I watch Godfather 2. I think it unfolds like the very, very best of any art. It reminds you why we care about art.
The learning thing is huge because I think that Godfather 2 is actually like an incredible text to teach and to like help understand like what storytelling means. And I don't mean this in like kind of a Poindextery, like really like, it's like I'm not talking about this in kind of like a professorial way. I mean like how stories affect us, because I was really watching it over these last couple of weeks, getting ready for the pod, rewatching it and rewatching it. You start to realize like how the themes are making you feel and how like the differences in 2 about how they've kind of stripped this family of their ethnicity and their heritage. And the first movie opens and it's this beautiful Italian celebration of love and marriage. And then the second one's in Tahoe and Pat Geary's there and he's like Americanized their names. He's like, Mike and Kay, thanks for the check. And it's all American and it's all money. It's all about money.
Wait, isn't Pat the wife?
Pat's Geary's wife.
Geary's wife is Pat.
Oh,
right?
yes, right. He's like, because he says
I'm just
Mike.
saying pieces Pat, K, Pat.
Yes.
That's right.
I just don't have to.
It makes them all sound like a bunch of wasps.
Yeah.
Pat is. But
Yeah, and
Pat's the wife.
he's like, thank you for your check, and you know, they don't know how to play Italian music. The band, when Pentangeli's like, yeah,
And they play Pop Goes the Weasel.
yeah, and they play Pop Goes the Weasel, and it's
No
like,
red wine, just champagne.
it strips them of this, and then you're watching it, and you're like, why do I feel bad? Why do I feel bad for Michael? Why do I feel bad about America? And you realize it's because of what Coppola is doing, building these kinds of arguments within a story about, like, this is what happens when we strip people away of their identity.
Well, when you talk about family, I mean, this promise of family, of Vito Corleone, as his family just got stripped and all he wanted was to have family, right? The sense of family, community, even the way that Michael talks to his sister, the idea in that scene you referenced a second ago, Sean, you know, the fact that Vito, you know, recreated family with the, I think abbondando, I didn't look this up, but in Italian, does it mean plenty, abundance? Because Janko abbondando, right? So here he was in this place. Those names Puzo came up with are not accidental.
Yeah, right.
Right? Amerigo Bonacere. Oh, none of those names are not accidental, right? So here he is in abundance for one more second. He finally has this Vito again, a family recreated with his best friend, and his best friend's father is like his surrogate father, and that gets stripped away. And so you're watching these people put to these choices over and over again, and yet stands in for the choices we're put to, that, you know, Americans were put to, immigrants are put to.
We just did this podcast that's running in January about King of New York. And in the researching it, Abel Ferrara, he had this quote in 1990, "My films explore the dark side of people. I'm fascinated by the conflict between good and evil. That's what every great story ultimately comes down to." I think Godfather II is the best example of that. It is the all-time good and evil movie. And Michael, it's like, well, he's definitely gone on the dark side, but he won't kill Fredo. He's not going to do that. He'll do everything else, but he's not. He won't cross that line. That'll be the one line he doesn't cross. And then when he's hugging Fredo, when he quote unquote forgives him at the funeral, and he kind of looks at Al Neri, and he just has that look like, oh, he's gonna fucking kill him, isn't he? And I've seen this movie 300 times.
You still
And
want
every
Al to
time
be
I'm
like,
oh, Al's
not
like,
that,
no, no.
right?
You want Al to go like,
right.
no, we're cutting the Fredo thing. We're not going to do that anymore.
It'd be great if Al was just like, Connie, do you need a drink? No, Fredo, is Deanna here? Like,
And even the canoe scene, as he's taking down his last people, and that fucking music's playing, and we're in the canoe, and I know Fredo's going to die. And now with the widescreen and the TVs and the way we have stuff now, you can see the widescreen the way we couldn't for 20 years when we watched this movie. And you can see the gun pop out on the right side, which you couldn't see for years because they had to square it out. Every time I'm devastated. To me, it's my personal most devastating movie death of all time.
Yes.
But
I can't fucking handle it. I love Fredo. I get so upset every time.
But I'm thinking so much now about what Brian just said about how when you watch the movie, you start thinking about everybody else's perspective more deeply. Like the first time, 5 times you watch it, it's not just Michael's movie and this legacy story about what Vito gives to Michael and how that has fucked Michael over in a lot of ways. It's driven him kind of insane. And you can only see it from his perspective. And, you know, he's a tortured figure and he does terrible things. But then the more times you watch it, your heart doesn't just break for Fredo. You're like, I understand why Fredo did this. You're like, I understand why these people why Hyman Roth did it. I understand why.
Smart.
Well, the when you watch the scene, and we'll talk about this obviously later, but when you watch the scene in the cafe in Cuba, for me, I had this thing 2 years ago where I watched The Godfather II. I was tweeting about it. I watched The Godfather II, I don't know, like every week for about 12 weeks because I was trying to figure stuff out about the show that I was working on. And that scene, I would watch that scene over and over again to understand.
Banana Daiquiri.
Yeah, just to understand everything about both of their motivations, about what Michael, because if you watch that scene, Michael is staring at Fredo. And it's the moment.
Yeah, it's like poker. He's measuring.
He knows,
all of his
right?
all of
It's
his
when he
tips.
because when he yells at Frankie Five Angels, he's making a decision. When he pulls the chair up close to Roth, he's making a decision. And then he comes to the decision.
Mm-hmm.
He comes to the decision when he's with Fredo in the cafe, right? That's when he comes to the decision. And when you look at that, or to me, I'm interested if you guys think that's when he comes to the decision, because it's one of the great questions of The Godfather. But for me, the way he's staring at Fredo and when Fredo says, why couldn't we have done this? And Michael just I mean, he knows in that moment. He sets the rest
I
of it
think he
up.
knows, but he's hoping it's not true.
Yes.
That's
But
the
I
great thing
think
about that scene. That's not, I never
He's
thought
playing
that.
poker with him the whole time.
I always thought, what a brilliant choice to have this moment between these brothers, because throughout these two movies, you never really get moments like that. And it's great that Fredo's like, why couldn't we have done this?
Watch Michael. Next time you watch the scene, watch Michael's face during the scene.
Yeah.
Michael is just the whole, he's this I'm sure of, that he is working Fredo in that moment.
Because he's kind of like, when he knows that moment at the nightclub, it's going to happen.
He's just staring. I mean, he's just looking at Fredo. That's why he left. I believe that's why he left the $2 million. I believe he left the $2 million so that he could get Fredo to Cuba. He wanted Fredo there. He wanted to give Fredo the sense of importance. He wanted to pretend, as he did to Frankie Five Angels and Roth, that he trusted Fredo. And so he brings Fredo to Cuba to put him to the test. The only person he's honest with is Tom Hagen. And he tells Tom Hagen the truth. You're the only one I can trust because I kept you out. And then he has to test these other close people, and Fredo fails the test.
It's a poker scene.
Yeah.
He's staring at him. It's like Rounders, where he's watching him to see what he's doing with the Oreos.
Also, you're right.
And he's
It is
just
Pat
throwing
Geary.
things at him.
You're right. It is Senator Pat Geary. I just looked it up. But I think the wife is also Pat, because when he comes out,
It's a Pat and a Pat.
he says, Kay, Pat.
That's
now,
right.
It might have been an actor. There are a couple of actor
Might have been actor
fuck-ups. Well, you know the Danny Aiello thing, which is my favorite what if.
that he ad-libbed it,
Yes. I mean, I think that he reveals this on a podcast.
right? Yeah.
Are you serious?
Oh, it's the greatest mystery of the movie, right? Why did he say that? Why is that line
That's
in the
like my
movie?
huge.
I know the answer to this.
Yeah, he had the.
I've
It was in my
gone
research,
deep
too.
on this. No, but I found that, I've gone deep on that question.
Oh God.
And I think he said it because he didn't have a line in the movie, and if you got a line, you get paid.
And
So he
Coppola
ad-libbed
said,
it.
say it. He ad-libbed it in rehearsal. He goes, I'm sitting there, I don't know what to do. And it's so one of the greatest podcast episodes in the history of the world. If I had to go to a desert island, I could take 10. It's Danny Aiello on Gilbert Gottfried's podcast.
Really?
Because Danny Aiello
Incredible heat check by you.
the most obnoxious. He's one of the great actors. And on that podcast, he basically says that he was going to punt. He calls Martin Scorsese like a sawed-off little prick. And he says he was going to beat the shit out of him and De Niro. He claims he put De Niro in Raging Bull instead of him. It's the craziest thing. And in the middle of it, he reveals the secret to The Godfather II,
Wow.
which is that ad-lib.
All right, so we should talk about the history of this movie, because there's so much to get into, and the categories are going to take 3 hours, and I really want to talk about the drapes for half of the podcast.
I feel like I need a lot more time on the conversation between Michael and Fredo too. Will we circle back?
Yeah, we're
that's
coming
what
back.
we
I have
have to
that
do
in
that.
I have
Michael
that
and
in
Fredo,
most
we have
rewatchable
to,
scenes.
we have to do that.
So-
yes, we could do a long time on that.
So the story of the original Godfather was, oh my God, this is going to be one of the biggest disasters of all time. And then it wasn't. The story of Godfather II is, this is going to be great. And then near the release, oh my God, this is a disaster. And then it circled back. But Paramount's developing a sequel. Coppola only wants to produce. Who does he suggest to direct?
Scorsese.
Paramount rejects it. Talk about a what if.
God, can you imagine?
Scorsese's Godfather II. I don't even know what the fuck that would have been.
Different, interesting.
Coppola
movie.
says, I'll direct
I think
it.
the answer to that question is The Irishman.
I don't want to litigate that here.
Oh yeah, you and I have to do that
I
separately.
know. Let's do it separately.
It's in 20 years, people will be talking about The Irishman as an all-time great movie.
Yes,
But
We'll be
Brian,
doing it
yes,
20
thank
years.
you.
all-time
Yes, Brian.
great movie,
Yes,
and
Brian.
you and I will do this another time. We could do a mini pod on The Irishman, because
I'm going to give it another chance over the break.
I don't believe you watched it with Shutting the World Out and just putting it on a thing, and you were just like,
did not.
I'm going to watch this movie.
That's
I did. And my stepmother wandering in and out of the room. All that
No,
stuff.
it's not. That's
I get it.
disgrazia.
Coppola agrees to make 2 as long as it could be a prequel sequel about the rise of Vito and the fall of Michael. He also demands no Robert Evans. Ali McGraw had legs that wouldn't quit. He's out. And
I'm a hot-blooded woman, Evans.
he also demands to write and direct the conversation, to direct a San Francisco opera production, and to write the screenplay for The Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
And Paramount's like, great, let's go.
Just only one opera?
Yeah, it's just fun.
You sure?
Kind of a heat check from Coppola, right? He's just throwing in shit like, and I also want free chicken every day for a month. And
You
he's
got to
just
take
going,
me to an LA Kings game.
You got to sit right behind the net.
It's one of the best things about him, though, is he's this incredibly highbrow aesthete. right? He's a really sophisticated guy who's fascinated by literary history and traditional history, but he's also making these things that are consumed by millions and millions of people. And after making, well, in addition to making The Godfather and The Godfather II, he's like, it's very important that I make The Conversation, which is a popular and well-known film now, but is such a weird and dark and kind of disturbing movie.
Yeah.
And that being the thing that he's negotiating for is so strange. You'd think for most people, they would get the kind of success of The Godfather and they would lean into that. And they would say like, I'm a pop entertainer. I
want to do Jaws or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's not that kind of artist.
He also demanded to use Part 2 in the title, which was a big deal. It was like only the second movie ever that had Part 2 in it. It became $13 million budget, made $88 million, seventh highest grossing film of 74. The first and only movie to have two actors win the Oscar with the same character. That's
Not
crazy.
bad, yeah.
Here's the crazy thing though. Really bad buzz heading into the movie's release. Do you know the reason why?
No.
Because he's doing these screenings and it's jumping back and forth too much. And if you see the final version of Part 2, it's like big chunk, back this way, big chunk, back this way. But he was doing these early screenings and it's just flying back and forth and the audience is confused. They don't know what's going on. And Paramount's freaking out. He fixes it. What's crazy though is even when it came out, it wasn't considered like an all-time classic. Like Vincent Canby, who was the New York Times biggest guy back then, he was like, stitched together from leftover parts. It talks, it moves and fits and starts, but it has no mind of its own. Tough one for Vincent.
It's a legendary pan.
Vince wants that one back.
Yeah, tough one. Ebert
He's got a ton of reviews like that.
Yeah.
His archives are tough.
Ebert, who's really having a rough run of it right now in the rewatchables. He's had some. We just did Happy Gilmore, which he just destroyed. And now Godfather, 3 out of 4 stars. Praised Pacino's performance.
Yeah, it's a 3-star, about a 3-star.
Yeah,
movie.
it's pretty good.
Yeah, let's give it 3.
Yeah.
He said Coppola was a
Gets right
master of
into the
mood,
thumbs up.
atmosphere, and period.
It's a little bit better than Poseidon, you know?
It's like a Simmons Irishman review. Kind of, you know what I mean? You look back on much.
Billy,
the same.
you're the Vincent
You are
Canby
the
of
Vincent
Irishman.
Canby. You're the Roger
I'm
Ebert
going to
of
be
today.
doing in my second review of it. It'll be 4 stars.
He's a master of mood, but the story, I don't know.
So he said the flashbacks give Coppola the greatest difficulty in maintaining his pace and narrative force, a structural weakness from which the film never recovers. So then he amended this. Ebert did this a lot.
I love the re-review.
The re-review of actually that was a 4-star movie. It's like, can you imagine?
What did his re-review say? Did you read the re-review?
No, I
Guys?
didn't. I'm out on re-reviews.
So he's done a lot of these. He's done hundreds of reviews, and Great Movies is one of his best books, where he's just writing about all of his favorite films of all time. And in very few of them does he note the fact that
it's a re-review?
Yes, that he originally said he didn't like the movie. He almost never says that because, you know, it's hard to admit that you got it wrong. This is a weird one, though. Like, there are a lot of negative reviews of this movie when it came out, which is so hard to fathom when you watch the movie even the first time.
Well, can you like Fight Club? We've lived through this, though. Like, we're looking at like, 74 must have been weird. Great works of art are very often missed in their time.
It's true.
They're often missed in their time.
And I think that there was a degree, it's
Moby Dick, man.
for what it's worth,
true.
it was a different job back then. Like being a film critic was a different job. It was a different kind of job. There was a lot you were like responsible. I mean, like I think going to see Godfather and being like 3 out of 4 is hard to imagine. But I do think it was different than the way in which like I think that people are getting a lot much longer lead screenings and being able to think about it.
Also, movies that make you feel bad
Sure.
they were rare then in that way, in a mainstream movie that made you feel bad.
Oh, yeah.
And so I remember the first time, I'm the oldest one here, but when I saw Goodfellas in the theater when it came out, and the first night it came out, and it's you know, top 10 movie for me, top 5 now, it left me feeling so shitty, so wounded, that if you asked me the next day, should I go see Goodfellas? I'd have been like, fuck, don't go see that movie. Like the first hour is great.
Right.
And then it's just misery. I mean, here you loved Michael. If you're going into this and you loved Michael Corleone coming out of The Godfather, and then he's revealed to be the worst person in the world.
Right.
You can see why it would leave a critic who had to write on deadline for the next day. Just, I understand why someone would have seen it and had a reservation.
Well, I told you this happened to me with Rounders. I saw Rounders in the theater. I thought the poker stuff was confusing. And it wasn't until it was on cable that I was like, then I got it. And I think Godfather
Thank you for
2,
comparing my movie to The Godfather.
I know, I figured it like that.
I can leave now. I'm done.
But Godfather
Rounders is
2
not a bummer though. Like Rounders, when it ends, you're
No,
like,
but-
fuck yeah,
yeah,
let's go
he
to
wins.
Vegas.
No,
Yeah.
but there's stuff that you on repeated viewings, it falls into place. And I think Godfather 2, it's 3 hours and 20 minutes long.
Mm.
It's jumping back and forth. And if you're seeing that in a movie theater,
Think about how
you
it
have to
opens.
see it 5 times, which is probably why I need to go watch The Irishman 4 more times. Because
It opens with a family
Irishman.
funeral in a time we were not familiar with, in a place that we're not familiar with. You know, even from the opening, and people are just it disorients throughout the film.
And there's things that, you know, maybe the 100th time I watched this, it was like, oh my God, De Niro. Which was the reaction the first 9 times, but after seeing Godfather 1 enough times and then piecing together how hard it was to be young Brando as Vito Corleone and all the mechanics that have to go into that
Also, the
performance, it's like, oh my
mystery,
God.
the other piece is if you don't have the opportunity to, like now, there are a million ways to watch something again right away, right? You go to the theater, even on the most restricted movie, if you guys know, because you get these links, you can go back and watch again. Imagine seeing The Godfather 2 in a theater once, and you have to piece that plot together. And you have to piece together, wait, who really who tried to kill Pentangelo?
I've seen the movie
Why did
100
they-
times. I'm still putting it
it's still
together.
confusing.
I now know, I understand it all because I've put like so much thought into it in my life to understand how that plot works. But I can't imagine seeing it once and you're left with this feeling. I could see somebody being left with the feeling of, I don't understand what I just watched.
It's a really good point, and maybe a little respect due to Ebert and Vincent Canby because of that. But so my perspective is almost an inversion of that, which is Chris and I think are young enough, certainly to have not lived through the movie, but also that when you see the 2 films for the first time, there's so much weight on these movies. You've been told your whole life, these are the most important movies ever made. And what Brian is saying is like, these are the best movie ever made and number 2 or 3. And so when you sit down, you're like, fuck, this better be good. And then it is that good.
Yeah.
And it is that influential and
they're kind of
emotional
better.
to you.
Yeah, they're kind of better.
That is like the true testament for me that I still can watch it every day and love it. Even though, because you know what it's like. You hate when someone's like, you got to see this movie. It's fucking incredible. You're like, all right, well, I'll decide for myself, you know?
The Irishman. All right, I'll watch it.
I got it. 3 hours, 30 minutes. It's fine.
But for movies like this to almost like demand repeat viewings, and now we can have repeat viewings right away, that's so powerful.
Well, so the case that this is the best movie ever, which I actually think it is, number one, the degree of difficulty of jumping back and forth, it just should never have worked. I can't even compare it to anything.
Highlander.
Bill and Ted.
Can you imagine him like explaining this to people in 1973, like his vision? He's at dinner. He's
You
like,
know
so I'm
what,
gonna
though?
go back
I gotta
and
say-
forth, and people must have been like,
But
what
from
the
the
fuck are
book,
you
the
talking
thing is,
about?
everyone did leave. So, but the 2 of us have read the book, 2 haven't, and we should talk about that because the book's essential.
It's a huge miss by
It's
you
a
guys.
huge miss by both of you. You'll
It's a
love it,
really
and you'll
terrible
both
job
please
by
send
both
us.
You're
the
just trying to
texts.
make up for the Irishman hate. So now
No,
you're going to try and make me and Sean feel bad about not reading
how
The
you don't
Godfather.
read the book.
Because remember, like what you guys point out, I just re-listened to the Godfather Rewatchables, which is awesome. And when you talk about the fact that the book was so popular, half the book makes up the whole Vito Corleone section of 2. And so that part, Coppola had to find a way in Puzo to tell that story. It's why it was worth telling the second story, right? Being able to do the parallel of the 2 men rising. So I think that in a way, it forced a structure on him, or
Right.
he found it because he had to find a way. He didn't want to be a bored artist because, as you say, Sean, he's a true artist. So he didn't want to just tell you this another linear story,
Straight ahead story. Yeah.
straight ahead story. Because he also had to jump. It couldn't be linear because he had to tell you Vito's young story and then Michael's from 30 on story, right? And so in trying to solve that puzzle, they came up with this folding it all together.
I think there's a practical reason for it too, which is that it's really hard to root for Michael during the movie, but it's
Yes.
not hard to root for Vito.
Correct.
And you need
Brilliant.
somebody
That's a brilliant point.
that you want to get behind. And even though Vito's doing terrible things, and you said, Brian, like Vito doesn't do anything terrible in the first film and in the rules of the first film, but in the second film, he's murdering people.
Yeah,
and
but he's
becoming a
protecting
criminal.
people.
But that's it. But
He
he's a
is
savior.
murdering people, but he's murdering. Yeah, he's murdering
For the
worse
right
people.
reasons.
It's the more. Hey, listen,
They're good
that's the
murders.
old trick of movie justice, though. Is if you have a creepy guy slap an innocent woman, then your hero's justified in murdering that person.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they set that up beautifully for Vito Corleone. Everybody that Vito deals with.
It's like John Wick. They killed his dog, so everything now is justified.
The thing that's great about the flashbacks of the dual structure is that you can read them in the movie Godfather II as talking to one another, so you can look at the two timelines and say, what thematically am I supposed to take from this? What how's this making me feel? How does this make me feel about Michael? How does this make me feel about Vito? And then you can also look at Godfather II and watch Godfather I and see how it's changed, and see the fact that in one, they cut off a horse's head and put it in the guy's bed, and in two, it's an actual person, and they put it in Geary's bed. And
Well,
so,
that's the
and you're
worst
like,
thing in the
this
movie.
is sliding down the mountain.
Yep.
This is getting
Yep.
away from him. And you know what? It actually puts the mirror back on you, because you're like, in the first one, you're like, this is so fucking cool. They chopped off the horse's head. I can't believe, like, the mafia. And then you're like, oh, these guys are disgusting. They probably always were disgusting, but these guys have lost it. They've lost their moral compass,
But
you know?
the dead sex worker is, I think that we read that differently now than even in the 70s, the
Sure.
way it was read. And reading it now, it's, I mean, not to jump the categories, but it is the thing that holds up the lead. It's the worst for me.
But it makes
It makes
you,
you, Michael, and everyone always talks, like, even you, Bill, you at the beginning of this talked about how you're like, well, he would never kill his brother. But right there and early in the movie, he kills he has an innocent woman murdered just so he can get ownership of a casino.
and you know what's even more important?
He has a woman who's completely had done nothing wrong, murdered just to gain leverage. And it's the power of Coppola's storytelling and Pacino as an actor that in that moment we don't just escape the movie, right? We keep
All that's left
watching.
is our friendship.
Right.
You know, that's the smartest thing.
So
And-
for the best movie of all time case, you made the point before about that opening scene and how different it is from
Yeah.
one, and how all the Italian is stripped.
Oh, and the communion
and all
party,
that
yeah.
stuff. And you know, when they go back and forth, and it's like the most Italian thing, right? We start in Sicily. He comes over on the boat. He's in this little part of New York that's so nostalgic now, and he's just making his way. And then you're going back to the 1950s, where it's like it doesn't even matter if he's Italian
There's
anymore.
a
He's
person
just a
on the
bad
dance,
guy.
yeah, right. And there's a woman on the dance floor yelling, "Never marry a wop." They treat their wives like shit.
Yeah,
Like,
but I think
while like
But
in
I
contrast
don't
to
know
like
if Coppola fully knew how great that would be, or whether that was an unintended awesome consequence, or both.
I think it's all purposeful. The Godfather opens with a wedding and it closes with a christening. Godfather II opens with a funeral and then moves into a communion and closes with a murder, a death, or three deaths really. And he's doing the whole life cycle. He's doing faith,
I think
power,
it's
family.
all intended because Frank, and I know we're all going to talk about Castellano and Frankie
Jesus.
Five Angels, but the Pop Goes the Weasel moment is it's fully intending to show you the sort of how the world has changed.
Right.
Right.
Well, so
fully intended, I think.
the third reason I think this is the best movie ever. This is actually, I'm stepping on Sean's territory. I think it's in the discussion for best performance ever by an actor. It's my
Pacino.
personal favorite. I would hear other candidates, but I think him in Godfather 2 is the greatest performance I've ever seen in a movie.
What about Merle though?
Merle is second.
what about
Okay.
Willie Chichi?
Chi-Chi's like
Chi-Chi's
17th.
Yeah.
And what pushes it over the top to me, and I want to step
Though
on the
in Rocky
rewatchables.
2, he wins. He wins Rocky 2, obviously.
I don't want to step on the rewatchable scenes because we're going to get to it, but the last scene of Godfather 2, when we flash back and we're at the table, and Pacino becomes Michael from the beginning of Godfather 1 again, even though he's morphed into this fucking killer through most of the movie. And then all of a sudden, he's got the same mannerisms. He's kind of sitting like this, just talking through the side of his mouth.
Sonny's yelling at him.
He's not anything yet. And the fact that he could dial that character back, I think is the best part of his performance.
But even in that flashback scene, still the menacing confidence. You know, I'm doing what I want to do, what I think is right. That's why he should be the Don. And unfortunately, he becomes the Don and terrible things happen. But it's all there. Like
It's also you could read that scene and think this guy's always been alone.
right. Right.
And that this guy is maybe never really felt love and never really felt connected to his family and always had something missing.
And that's why that goes back to the Fredo scene in Cuba where he's like, why couldn't we have done this before?
Yeah.
It's like, Michael doesn't respect Fredo.
Yeah.
He never respected Fredo, and they couldn't have it.
But in that last scene, Fredo is the only one who's like, "That's great, Mike. So glad you joined the Marines."
You know, he does the first thing he says about Fredo in 2 is Fredo has a good heart.
Yeah.
Right? That's the first thing he says about Fredo in 2 is Fredo has a good heart.
He says it to Tom. He's like, I know he's out there. He's scared.
Yeah.
Tell him I know Roth misled him.
That's
I mean,
that's later.
I know he's probably
And then
lying, but it's like you can tell that he gets it. You know what I mean?
Well, so the Pacino thing leads us to the 1975 Oscars, which we have to dive into a little bit.
Can you, yeah, I didn't do research on this. So remind us all.
Our hosts were Bob Hope, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, and Shirley MacLaine.
Frank Sinatra, heard of him. Heard of him, Bill.
It's quite
pretty
a
cool guy.
quartet.
I could do 5 days on Sammy Davis Jr., so let's just move through it.
Godfather 2.
Maybe the greatest entertainer who ever lived.
Wow. 11 Oscar nominations,
Think about it.
6 Oscar wins.
What we could do.
Best Picture wins, first sequel ever to win. Won Best Director for Coppola, Best Supporting Actor for De Niro. Won Screenplay, Score, Art Direction. 3 nominations in Best Supporting Actor: De Niro, Gazzo,
Love Gazzo.
Oh,
Strasberg. No
Love
Cazale, which we'll get to. Your Best Picture nominees that year: Godfather, Chinatown, Lenny, The Conversation, and The Towering Inferno. So Coppola had 2. Your Best Actors: Jack Nicholson for Chinatown. Like one of the 5 best performances of that decade.
it's just amazing.
The
Yeah,
decade,
stunning.
yeah.
Pacino, Godfather 2, maybe the best performance ever. Dustin Hoffman and Lenny, really good. Albert Finney and Art Carney for Harry and Tonto. Who wins? Art Carney. Art Carney wins.
It's not what you want. It is not what you want. This is literally the problem with the Oscars, which I love and I'm obsessed with. But this fucking award,
He's going full Mad Dog right now.
It makes me so mad because you said Pacino's giving maybe the greatest screen performance in the history of screens.
On
Yeah,
a
but he
movie that
didn't-
everyone saw and was really popular.
But he didn't say hoo-ah in that one, so they couldn't. You know what I'm saying?
He
That
gets-
was-
I mean, he gets
you
his
had to wait
revenge.
until
He
he
gets-
said
it wasn't his time.
He gets his Art Carney revenge, but like, God bless Art Carney, wonderful actor, Hollywood legend. This is
The only
fucking
time Harry and
nonsense.
Tonto ever comes up is when somebody is doing this game.
Well,
To be like, who did Al Pacino lose to?
if Nicholson had won for Chinatown, I would still be upset, but you wouldn't be like kicking chairs over.
Even Albert Finney in Murder on the Orient Express would have been better. Even that would have been better.
I can't even understand how this happened unless there was like resentment with the old Oscar
Wasn't Art
voters.
Carney
for
just like
new-
old Hollywood? Everybody
That-
loved
that's
him.
what
Yeah,
I'm
the
thinking.
Academy is full of old people.
People
Yeah.
loved Art Carney.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're
think
like, let's
about
give
what
it to Art.
everything he'd ever
Yeah.
done.
Pacino will have his day.
I mean, Art Carney basically invented television.
Mhm.
So, right? And then had done those movies with math. He mattered to
legend.
people. He was a
Totally.
legend. And so they rewarded, like you say, it's always filled with older people and they voted sentimentally. And it has to do with the Godfather II making people feel bad.
The thing that's so funny about it though is this isn't usually all of the awards. There's no synchronicity. So we're in the high times of the new Hollywood, and Godfather 2 wins Best Picture. Coppola wins Best Director. Ellen Burstyn wins for Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, a Scorsese movie.
Scorsese, yeah.
Ingrid Bergman wins for Murder on the Orient Express, a Lumet movie. And De Niro wins Supporting Actor for Godfather 2. This is the only sentimental choice, and it's the one that is maybe the biggest sin other than Best Picture.
Well, in the next year, Rocky beats All the President's Men, right?
But that is when Hollywood flips too. That is when Jaws comes, and that is when everything starts to change a little bit. So it's like this is the last moment, and they get it wrong.
Old Hollywood. Best director: Coppola, Polanski, Truffaut, Fosse, and Cassavetes.
Insane.
Not bad. We got to talk about Cazale not getting nominated.
Yeah.
There's two really
Should have been.
De Niro versus Cazale for Best Supporting Actor. We could litigate that all day. I don't know if there's a right answer. I think it's 2 of the great performances.
I mean, De
He
Niro
doesn't get
did it in
nominated.
2 languages.
Strasberg gets nominated.
That's a
Gazzo
Yeah.
gets nominated. Cazale to me has to be number 2. You made the case when we were talking about it last week that it just should have had 5 nominees.
I think they should have had the
Duvall
category.
should have been the fifth
Duvall.
one.
It's
I love that.
should have been the Atlanta Hawks Bud team.
Yeah,
They-
right.
all of them go to the All
because
Star
the 2
game.
other nominees in the category are Fred Astaire in The Towering Inferno, which again, also a Hollywood legend, an even bigger Hollywood legend than Carney,
travesty.
but that's a fucking joke.
That's not a good movie.
That's a joke.
No, that's
and
a
Jeff
travesty.
Bridges in Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, which is a cool movie.
That's a really fun movie.
Yeah, it's
And
a
he's
cool
good
movie.
in that
But
movie.
that's weird that they're like you gotta get Jeff Bridges
But
in
over
here.
Cazale and Duvall, and also Duvall is like the most underrated part of this movie now. He's so good as Hagen and all the stuff that he has to do to kind of like hold himself in and stay tight.
Why do you hurt me, Brian?
That's an incredible moment.
Do you think OJ should have been nominated in Towering Inferno over Fred Astaire or no?
I have no
Is that
comment
the
on
only
that.
way this would have been worse? So anyway,
The only thing that would have been worse would have been if OJ murdered John Cazale. That is the only thing that could have been worse.
it could have happened. So Cazale doesn't get nominated, which is, it's in the, I think the biggest Oscar travesty of all time is Pacino not winning for this movie. Pacino or Nicholson, either one.
Yeah.
But Cazale not getting nominated is top 5. I just don't understand. Every scene, the scene when he tells Mike what happened.
I'm gonna start. I really want to start doing meetings with you like that.
just,
Like just
Bill. I don't
have
know
much to say,
anything.
Bill.
I don't have much to say, Chris Ryan.
I can't have time to watch the Celtics.
Well, yeah, and also in those 5 movies, there's a documentary. It's not a great documentary, but it's worth watching because the 5 movies that John Cazale made are just all great movies, and he's great in every one.
So it's
of them.
Godfather, Godfather II, Conversation, Deer Hunter. What's the 5th?
Dog Day Afternoon.
It's pretty good.
It's a
Oh, yeah,
stunning,
it's okay.
it's a
Sorry.
stunning run, and he's
And his girlfriend was
amazing.
Meryl Streep.
Yeah, and it's amazing and different in each one is totally different.
Yeah.
It's also this beautiful story of him and Pacino being these lifelong creative partners, or like the Indian Wants the Bronx and doing that show together, and then doing Godfather, doing Dog
Also,
Day.
there are things that just from being on the inside of making stuff all the time that there are parts of this that just because I've seen it and been around it, like there were discussions, and I've heard you always wonder about this, all of us, but there are discussions that are long discussions about wardrobe and facial hair. And like when you think about the mustache that Fredo decides to have and the way it's
In 2.
cut in 2,
Yeah.
and the way that it's cut in that scene, you got to think about, like, there's a production designer. And these are things that if you're like, the amount of time a designer would have taken to find the house that stands in for Reno. Like, so you find the house, then that room, then deciding to set that scene in that room, then that chair.
Mhm.
Somebody picked that chair for him. Like that's not just there. That chair is chosen for him to have that posture. Then the actor sits in that chair during rehearsal and decides, all right, I want to be there in that posture. And that morning they've sat, or at the beginning of the show, they've sat and talked about, they've looked at reference photos for that period. But then the guy's like, that's the mustache I want. Francis, what do you think of that mustache? And they're like, maybe can we take a quarter inch off the top of that? I mean, that is what happens.
Yeah.
And we sometimes, as a fan, we take that stuff for granted.
And you know
but
the craziest
each
thing is?
decision in a masterpiece.
The craziest thing is then Gordon Willis is like, I'm not going to turn a single light on.
Well, but that's, I'm going to top,
Yeah.
the lights I'm going to put on are top,
Yeah.
from the top, but the top lit. But each decision in that's why a masterpiece is something, which is what we're talking about here, whether it's the single best of all time. But to make a masterpiece, every one of those decisions has to be right.
Mhm.
And they're all thought about, planned, debated, and then occasionally lucked into and all that stuff. And it's amazing. You talk about Fredo there. I'm just picturing the jacket. I'm picturing every part of what he's got going. And so you get to set, and the actor's wardrobe is hung in their trailer. So like John Cazale showed up that day, and that's hung in his trailer, and he's tried it on once before. And you picture him putting that on in his trailer and becoming this guy. And it's just amazing to all the things that led to that moment where his posture is the way you're talking about it. It's like 100 decisions had to be made to set the stage for that thing to happen.
Want to do 90 seconds on Gordon? Your
Oh,
guy?
I mean, it's if you want to know how cinematography affects how you feel about story, you just watch this movie, because you don't see people's eyes. You don't see Talia Shire's eyes. You don't see Michael's eyes. You're being lit. You're backlit, and everything is in shadow. So shadow becomes light. I mean, it is so profound.
And top lit.
Yeah,
Backlit.
yeah.
Top lit.
So
And then all the Tahoe stuff, that's like his masterpiece.
but it's a tomb. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's
Oh my
perfect for the story. It's not just like, hey, I have this hot shot who's gonna just only top light stuff or go so dark. It's Michael is living in a mausoleum to his own family. It's unbelievable.
Let's do the categories.
Can I just say one thing before we start? Because just off of what you said,
Yep.
It's really worth noting because we did a lot in the first pod about how all the chaos around the first movie, and he was almost fired, and he was suspicious of different department heads because he thought they were plotting against him. By all accounts, this one was smooth. They gave him what he wanted. He got to run the production. And you do wonder whether or not, what other Coppola could we have gotten if he had like more experiences like this? This is his best film, I think.
There's a lot of Apocalypse Now.
Well, I was going to say,
Of course,
though,
yeah.
I mean, Chris McQuarrie on my podcast talks about what you have to do to make Apocalypse Now. And I don't know if you guys saw have you done Apocalypse Now on this?
We have not.
It's going to happen.
Oh, yeah, that's a hell of a film.
You flying back?
I think I am. Sadly, I think I am. But that, you should get Macquarie. I'll try to get Macquarie to come. He's the most interesting guy and obviously the best. And he'd be brilliant for that. I'll ask him to do it for you. He'd be incredible. But yeah, I think when you give it's a question about when you take away anything pushing against you, what happens? I don't know. Apocalypse Now is Apocalypse Now is another masterpiece, but that came together an entirely different way.
Sure.
Right? When he had everything.
He's still rewriting the whole thing like as he's doing it. Yeah.
He works really well
Yeah.
inside of a structure. He had the book. He had the book, and the book helps him. He's made a lot of great films, but I feel like having that roadmap with Puzo
And
is
working
part
on it
of
with Puzo.
Yeah, and collaborating. And that's part of the challenges of 3, which we're not really talking about, but no Puzo
Are we
makes
treating
3 a
as
challenge.
canon? Like, are we
No.
treating? No, okay.
I can't. You guys can.
There's stuff in it I love.
Me too.
I actually think Pacino is excellent in it, but it's got a lot of problems. No, okay. All right, Brian says no.
I saw that with my stepfather, and we laughed, and he was like Neil's mom in Dead Poets Society at the end, like, it's okay, it's gonna be fine, it's okay, it's fine.
Okay, so
I was like, that movie was bad. What are you talking about? No, it's fine. It had some good parts. It's fine.
Twice in my life, I changed an entire travel schedule to see something. First time was backpacking with my friends after college. We changed everything around to see Tyson Spinks. We went hundreds and hundreds of miles out of our way to find a place that you could see it.
Yeah.
Horrible disappointment.
Yeah.
91 seconds. Literally, I'm telling you, we spent 3 days getting to how we could see that by train, getting to see that fight, and it was 91 seconds. That's true. That just happened.
I had a party in the basement with all my friends,
Yeah.
and my mom hadn't even brought the food down yet, and the fight was over.
So
Yeah.
I literally spent 3 days on trains to go watch that fight, and on a television in a hotel in Zermatt, Switzerland, literally from youth hostels.
Holy shit.
Yes.
That's true. And the other time is I was on a vacation, and I flew back. Where I was on an island on a vacation Christmas, and I flew back to see Godfather III in the theater when it came out. And it's like the single most disappointing movie-going experience of my life.
If the daughter had been any other actress, it might have been passable.
That
but
gnocchi
she-
scene is unsavable, Bill. The gnocchi scene's unsavable.
If it had been Winona, it's a different movie, and it was supposed to be Winona.
And listen, she's a genius, Sofia Coppola. An
Oh, yeah.
absolute genius.
She's not an actress.
And originally, it was
The-
supposed
the
to be
four of us
it was
aren't
supposed to
actors
be
either.
Duvall and the George Hamilton
I'm
role,
pretty good
right?
at
Like,
Michael.
isn't
You were
that
good in rounders.
Yeah, and I think the movie would have been different. Can I just say one thing about 3? 3 is very similar to insofar as he's trying to take real life events and morph them to make a great story. I'm not defending it. I'm just trying to explain what I think happened. He's got all this information.
Yeah, shit is similar to pizza too.
Is this your
both sort of?
Are you doing your
those things
Fredo?
are
Yeah.
generally made of similar things, Sean.
Let it be known that I am not the one criticizing Francis Ford Coppola on this podcast. I am not.
3 is
These
bad.
gentlemen are- 3 is not good. It's
3
not
is
good. It's not
just
good.
awful.
He got intoxicated by this Vatican story.
I think
And
we
it
could
fucked
do a
him up a little bit.
rewatchables on it just so we could do it in the voice of the guy who's like immobile, international immobile.
I can't even laugh at the gags because I've only seen it one time.
Pacino's great in it. Everybody else is bad.
Yeah, when he
Was
drops.
not what I wanted.
Yeah.
That's like one of his great line readings. I like it.
Pull Me Back In
Yeah.
was the famous one. All right, we're going to do the categories because we have a lot to get through. Most rewatchable scene. Let's start with Senator Geary negotiating with Michael. I despise your masquerade, the dishonest way you pose yourself, you and your whole fucking family. We're both part of the same hypocrisy, Senator. And that leads to, Senator, you can have my answer now if you'd like. It's my final offer is this: nothing. Not even the fee of the gaming license, which I'd appreciate if you put up personally. And that's when we're like, oh, Michael's gone to another level.
Is that the number one movie that you've quoted to me in all the time that I've known you?
My
Like
offer
that-
is nothing.
My offer is nothing.
It's probably.
Every time I'm like, hey, Bill, what if we did this? And he's like, I'll give you my answer right now if you want.
It is true. I do it. Tell them to throw in the gaming license. Senator Gary, who we'll get to, is really good, and there's a whole backstory with him in the 70s, but file that away. Second scene, Hyman Roth brings up Mo Green to Michael Corleone.
This is for most rewatch. Are we going chronologically?
Huh?
Are we
How
going
many rewatchable scenes do you have? You
I
just
have
skipped like 2/3 of the
Fucking
movie.
15 scenes.
Okay, so you're not going chronologically.
Oh, okay.
I am
You're
going chronologically, but I mean,
That takes
do you
place
want
like
to just
an
do the
hour
whole
into the
movie? do you have another one you want to throw in quick? You can throw in after. Let me finish,
Okay,
and then
okay,
if I miss something. Hyman Roth, who starts out slow. It's like, not really sure I'm in on Hyman Roth yet. And then he has this scene.
When he's watching Notre Dame USC, you don't like that?
No, and they used the real Notre Dame USC.
I know,
for that.
yeah. Notre Dame won.
I enjoyed it. He's like, I heard you had some trouble. I love that scene.
And we're not sure what the dynamic is.
Yeah.
And then he does this Mo Green speech about how he had an idea to build a city out of a desert stopover.
Also, that
for
scene, the Mo
GIs.
Green scene when Michael pulls the chair up to him. I mean, not Mo Green, the first scene with
when he
Roth.
comes in close.
When
to
he
them.
pulls the chair, you're just saying not much happens in it. I think so much happens.
Well,
in
it's
that
more-
scene.
He's like a detective in that.
Yeah, I
scene.
think
Yeah.
so
He's trying
much
to
happens.
figure it out.
I'm
When
saying
he
from
pulls
Hyman Roth's standpoint, not a lot's going on
But
yet.
in terms of rewatchability, I would say, or like the lessons of the movie, because like one of the things is all of us, you and I were young during that.
yeah,
You know, a lot of the way we learned, flawed or not, how to code of what it meant to be like a man back in the 70s and 80s was by these two movies.
yeah.
And the way that Michael pulled that chair up to have that conversation, like I've done that once or twice in my whole life. Like honestly, wanting to get the truth from somebody, I've pulled a chair uncomfortably close to them.
Yeah.
And it's very effective, by the way.
Right.
Very effective at getting a reaction.
So Hyman Roth in this scene, it's when it's like, oh, so he can throw 100 miles an hour.
Yes.
And he does that kid's name was Mo Green, and the city he invented was Las Vegas. This was a great man, a man of vision and guts. And it's like, oh shit, this is why he tried to kill Michael. I didn't, and the whole thing, it's
I
like a
didn't
voila
ask.
moment.
Who gave the order?
I didn't ask. And then he ends with, I'm going in to take a nap. When I wake, if the money's on the table, I'll know I have a partner. If it isn't, I'll know I don't. Explain the Lee Strasberg part of this whole thing.
He's one of the most legendary acting teachers in the history of the art form.
Head of the actor studio.
Head of
Probably
the
number
actor
one,
studio. Probably.
Is there a more legendary actor teacher?
Stanislavski. That's the
yeah.
only one, the two of them. And Meisner. I mean, the three.
Yeah.
Are,
And Stella Adler, I
and
guess.
Stella
too.
Adler and Meisner. Those
Um,
four would be the.
But was not really a professional actor. He had acted
Yeah.
before, but this is his first film performance. And he influenced this whole generation of people that had been dominating Hollywood at the time.
Much like Brando was the influence in the first movie.
Exactly.
They have like an acting father figure around.
But he's also this, diminutive guy from the Ukraine, and he's just like he's so perfectly cast as this Meyer Lansky stand-in who is one part accountant and one part vicious killer. And it's such a genius idea to integrate all of this movie history. And he does it in both of the movies. Gazzo is a playwright, Roger Corman in the Senate, choosing all of these people who have influenced Hollywood over the last 15 years to be these avatars of power in the story. It's fucking brilliant.
It's also just such an incredible character because he is the stand-in for Vito. He's the guy that Michael is now is sort of aspiring to be, but he's a fucking basically alone in a small house in Miami watching college football, getting like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches served to him. Like he doesn't
Tuna
have
fish.
that tuna fish. He doesn't have that rich life. Thank you. That Vito has.
What's age the worst? Chris's peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
I know. Seriously, I just got owned on a Hyman Roth's fucking lunch order.
What about
The
him
stupid
going?
thing is I went and looked up all this stuff about the USC Notre Dame game and I got the tuna fish wrong.
But that's the thing is like a lot of these guys, it's not even about the money. At this point with Meyer Lansky, at this point, it's not even about the money. It's about the power. It's about being in charge. It's about being the guy who's like, I'm bigger than Vito. I'm bigger than all of these guys. I'm bigger than this whole
US
Italian
Steel.
American mafia, and I'm bigger than US Steel.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing about the way the movie unfolds, right? You watch that scene, which is why I think it's a very rewatchable scene, that first scene with the tuna fish
I'll-
sandwich and the
I'll
college
add it.
football.
I'm happy to add it.
No, but also you watch it, and when he says to Michael, you're a very wise and considerate young man, what he's really saying is you're a fool.
Yep.
You are a moron. I just missed killing you by this much, and you're here pledging your fealty to me, and you've fallen for my gag. And he's playing the same version of poker. He believes he's playing a version of poker with Michael that Michael's playing with Fredo and everybody else. And it's incredible on That's why you have to watch it a second time. If you don't know the end, you watch that scene credulously.
Mm-hmm.
You
Absolutely.
believe that Lansky thinks, that Roth thinks that Michael is a wise and considerate young man.
Yeah.
And later you realize, well, he just knows he's sucking him in to kill him. So the dynamics in that scene are just incredible.
How do you
to
feel
me.
about shirtless Hyman Roth?
It's the best
I
thing
love
ever.
it. I love it. I want you to start doing that look.
What a fucking flex by Lee Strasberg.
You know the story, right? You
Amazing.
know why
No,
I did that?
we don't know.
I was going
I
to do it
don't.
later, but do it now.
Okay, so Coppola meets with Elia Kazan after Godfather 1. And they have this big conversation about movies and
Kazan,
art.
To be Hyman Roth.
To be Hyman
Kazan,
Roth.
who's one of the one of the great directors.
Yeah,
who,
Streetcar Named Desire, On the Waterfront, million movies. And
he wrote an incredible book about directing that if you're ever interested in making stuff, you should read.
he wants him to play Hyman Roth for the same reason. He's like trying to pluck these people from movie history. Kazan won't do it. But in their meeting, Kazan's not wearing a shirt. And he's like, this is the weirdest thing ever that this guy's not wearing a shirt. Hyman Roth shouldn't be wearing a shirt in this scene in the movie. So that's why he puts it in the movie.
Next rewatchable, the 3-part Havana sequence. I am combining all of these. Oh no, I forgot one. I'm sorry. The banana daiquiri. So
The showdown.
the showdown.
You don't want
Did we hit that one? We hit
Well,
that one properly?
No, we said you mean the scene where at the cafe with Fredo? And,
Yeah, I feel like we hit that
Are
one
you putting
pretty
that
high.
as part of the?
You said you
of
wanted to do
Havana?
more.
All I
No.
wanted to say about it was just what I said earlier, which is like, it's the reason that they never had a moment like that is because Michael doesn't see Fredo as an equal. He doesn't
Sure.
see him as somebody that he can commune with, that he can bond with.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is I don't know if it's the most rewatchable, so I think that's fair.
We should
But
maybe talk about it though.
It's the most important. Yeah, but I think it's like the most important scene in the movie. So the thing about The Godfather 2, unlike The Godfather 1, is each scene is so painful in The Godfather 2.
Yeah.
As the movie gets going, these scenes are painful. Like a rewatchable scene, Geary scene is totally the most rewatchable because what an entertaining thing. Michael gets to still be the Michael we loved. That this sort of the long tail of the first movie is still there. Where he got vengeance for his whole family, and now he's being put upon by a hypocrite. He gets to tell the guy, we're all hypocrites. Leave my family out of it. He's still holding on to this idea of family. By the middle of the movie, Michael's soulless. We understand.
Mhm.
And so it's not as much fun to rewatch the individual scenes. It's a different kind of, it's a cascading effect of darkness and evil.
Yeah.
To that point, I think some of the more rewatchable scenes are the ones that don't give you that feeling. Like when the first time that Pentangeli, when they're at the
Yes.
communion and he has to sit down with him and he's drunk and he starts talking. You know, it's just so fun to watch Gazzo do all that, and he's kind of blending the Italian and the
he's got that
English.
That's
one-
my favorite throwaway line in the whole movie is in that scene. When he goes, Cheech, a port. Which is Cheech, get the door?
Yeah.
Cheech, a port.
Those are the scenes that I love
Yeah.
to rewatch.
Amazing.
He's in that scene. He's trying to bring back the old ways. When he says, "I want him dead," and he goes, "No," he's like mortal. You know, it's like, oh, it's like
Yes.
he's trying to bring the Italian heritage back into this room that's been stripped of it. It's like it's so interesting.
The 3-part Havana sequence. Michael realizes Fredo betrayed him.
At the Donkey Sex
smoking a
Club,
cig.
yeah.
Mike smokes a lot of cigs in this movie. He definitely stepped
That's
up the
58,
nicotine.
yeah.
And those weren't like the fucking soap cigarettes either.
No.
That's Pacino just killing himself. But when he does this, cutting to Hyman Roth's assassination going sideways, Chris has some thoughts on the guy.
Basetta?
yeah.
Basada, is that his name?
Yeah, that's your guy.
I don't think he ever gets his name said out loud in the movie. You have to look it up.
One
I
outfit
think his name's
Basetta.
peanut butter sandwich.
Yeah, it's Mr. Peanut Butter.
His name is peanut butter.
A couple things. One outfit, the
One-
entire movie. You're talking about making choices.
The
This guy's got-
weather doesn't
It's like-
matter. He's wearing that outfit.
Hey, I need you to come to Havana with me. It's like, great, I have the perfect turtleneck for that. I'm gonna put on this cool turtleneck. It's very inconspicuous so that when I'm lurking around fucking hospitals, no one will notice me.
Guy looks like fucking
I'm gonna
Angel of
blend.
Death.
I know.
It's 99 degrees.
Also,
It's
Michael, like, bring some backup. You know what I mean? Like, so now he's like, the Cuban military is going to try and have me assassinated on New Year's Eve, but I got the turtleneck guy who I already am sending on another task, but he's going to get me out of Havana.
And have Black Sheep Fredo.
You know what I realized, Bill, that like, so here's why not just to go back, the reason the two of you guys need to really read the book is like Rocco Lampone and Al Neri and how Michael got those two people to be in his world. Those stories are incredible in the book. So
Rocco's like a war veteran,
but
right?
Each one has a phenomenal story of Michael pulling them to get them in and why they're loyal to him. And so you can assume the same about Peanut Butter Guy.
Yeah.
That he too has a story that's not in, he's obviously not in the book, but like the way in which Michael gets these people.
Yeah, I think it's the assumption is that, if I read correctly, it was that he's like Sicilian. He doesn't speak English, but he is like an absolute executioner, and that he's just got him with him.
He's like Furio before Furio.
And that leads to I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart. Brutal.
Amazing. Nobody stages a big, loud, noisy scene with a lot of people better than Coppola. The wedding in 1, the big party in Havana in 2,
the Lower East Side tenement stuff.
Yes, that all the
San Gennaro,
the Corleone assassination in 1, and then all the
Duvall. How about the Duvall scene in Apocalypse Now?
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, nothing's ever been that.
Helicopters landing. I mean, he is like the big set piece master.
Tom Waits eating flies, Dracula.
Is I know it was you, Fredo, the number one you betrayed me movie thing you can go to if in any sort of context.
Like with the kiss, throw the kiss in, yeah.
It's the number one betrayal in a movie.
Yeah.
Or like the acknowledgement of a betrayal. Next scene, Vito killing Don Fanucci.
Amazing.
The best.
The Festa.
The best.
Absolute
The
symphony
fucking
of filmmaking.
De Niro
Working
just
on the-
jumping
on
on
the
the
roof.
roof, watching him. Don Fanucci buying
details
the
you-
oranges, so
the
you know he's going to die
Yeah.
as soon as he gets like
and
an
the
orange.
details of like Fanucci wearing the white so you can track him when he's walking. It's just like,
Even the light bulb when he's like, why is this light bulb? Like every little touch of that
For me,
is
even
so
though it's
good.
moments and we're in this era and it ties into Fanucci, Amy, my wife, who's also a novelist and a filmmaker too, we always talk about the scene after he gets fired, when he just puts the pear down, when Vito puts the pear down on his wife's table, you know, and sits down and they just silently eat the thing and he gives her a kiss. This little moment where you just get everything about who this man is and what matters to him. And the filmmaking. So, because I think as much as Coppola is great at these huge scenes, he's so incredible. That is a wordless scene. He comes in, he's been fired. He turns down the gift of all that fruit, all that abundance. He turns it down, and he just has this pair, and it's their innocent simplicity that's all been put to question, their love, and it's wordless and it's small. And for me, that moment, every time when you say you watch it and cry, every time I see it, I'm like brought to tears.
oh yeah. She's like, what a nice little pair.
Yeah. Just this little moment.
Yeah.
Also, these great themes of like kind of what comes out of the earth and then what you make of it is a whole part of the movie. Like the oranges, like you're saying, and then the pear, and then the olive oil, and that being the kind of the mask for their business, and all the wine, and like all of that stuff is so purposeful.
Yeah.
And it's all like it's a bunch of farmers who built up this huge business. That's the story.
So purposeful. And then back to Gordon Willis, like where he put the camera. 'Cause everyone talks about the lighting with Gordon Willis, but also where he puts the camera to capture that pear and to capture that whole mise en scène.
And his whole thing was he was being driven crazy because Coppola wanted them to be able to move around in the frame. So Coppola didn't care about the blocking as much. And Willis was like, tape the goddamn marking down. I want them to stand still when I'm shooting them. And they had fights about it. They really, he almost quit one because of it.
That's what's good about the assassination too, the Fanucci killing, because it's a more contained and in a very enclosed space. So you're just like, you're back to Fanucci in the doorway, and then you're back to De Niro, then you're back, and then you're back. He taps the light.
It's amazing.
Boom.
Towel gun.
Towel gun.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then
Breaking the gun
just
and the
the best.
different
and the
chimneys.
towel is on fire, passing the torch from, Black Hand to him.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Oh, I like when you get all English major again. Next scene, Fredo versus Michael. We already talked about it. I didn't know it was going to be a hit, Mike. Fredo getting mad. Take care of me. Take care of me. I'm your big brother, Mike. Does that whole thing.
And I was passed
Do
over.
you think there's anything Fredo could have? I want to ask. This is something I've always wondered about. It's a what if, but not real. Is there anything Fredo could have done or said in that scene if he had comported himself entirely differently?
No.
And is there anything that could have saved his life?
Not now. I think that when you watch it there, you wonder whether like, oh, if he had just come to him hat in hand, or if he had just been like, I was stupid and they got me. But instead he's being obstinate. He's saying like, but now when you watch it, you realize even when Michael says to Tom scenes before that, like, I know he's scared. Roth manipulated him, tell him just to come home. It's just to kill him. It's always going to be to
Chris.
kill him.
If the night of the assassination, if the night of the assassination, Fredo had said, Mike, Dominic Cini's called me and I didn't know he wanted some information. I didn't think could he have saved himself that if he would have gone right to his brother?
I think maybe, but not in that moment that you're talking about when they're talking in Tahoe and
Right.
they're
By
overlooking
Tahoe,
the
it's
lake.
over.
By then it's done. He's biding his time until he's going to kill him.
It ain't the way I wanted it. I can handle things. I'm smart. And then
Not like everyone says, not like dumb.
I'm smart and I want my respect. Fredo, you're nothing to me now. You're not a brother. You're not a friend. I don't want to know you or what you do. I don't want to see you at the hotels. I don't want you near my house. When you see our mother, I want to know a day in advance so I won't be there. You understand? It's fucking... He might as well have just killed him.
He did. He
Stab
does
his
right
But
there.
just like kill
But
him.
he does right
just
there.
shoot him there. It's almost worse to do what he did versus just like being like...
It goes back to what Chris and Brian are saying about who you're rooting for and who you're behind. And like in that moment, you're like, oh, I feel so bad for Fredo. But Fredo fucking betrayed the family. If Chris betrayed you like this, you got to put a bullet in the back of Chris's head.
absolutely.
I never felt bad for
You will
Fredo in
die.
that scene because by that scene, Johnny Ola has called him at home, woken him up, and you know for sure Fredo's the betrayer,
Right.
as the viewer. And so, by the movie justice of that thing, Fredo did sell out his brother.
Yeah, but he's so
for
dim.
just ego.
But he's just like, he doesn't realize, like he doesn't have
sure.
awareness of his own insecurity and his own
You
vulnerability.
can't kill your brother. It's the worst thing it's the worst thing, that I think it's the second worst thing Michael does. That killing the innocent woman, I think, is worse. But it is as bad a thing as you can possibly do. And, but Fredo did betray him.
Yeah, he did.
Well, speaking of betrayal, the abortion scene.
Well, that's not that's rewatchable to
Yeah.
you?
Oh, yeah.
Just every couple days, I just fire up the abortion scene.
It's Pacino's greatest scene. How is that not one of the most rewatchable scenes?
I want to have it.
So
Really?
Oh, it's too
in my house this week, as I've been rewatching the movie almost every day, my wife will be doing something in our bedroom, and I'll be like, "This must all end!
It's unholy.
she'll come out and make sure
This
I'm
is
okay.
not a rewatchable for you?
Well,
Brian.
it's because Pacino's so incredible.
Brian, at this moment, I feel no love for you at all.
Yeah, it's incredible. I can't, but I
The
it's so
face he makes
painful.
after she says, oh, Michael, you are blind. It wasn't a miscarriage. It was an abortion. It was an abortion, Michael. Just like our marriage is an abortion, something that's unholy and evil. And they cut to him and he's like, and it's like the greatest 5 seconds anyone's ever had in a movie.
Well, Hagen had to know. You know that, right?
Because he had to take her there,
Hagen
right?
had to know. When Hagen says it was an abortion, when Hagen says
is
there
a
was a
miscarriage,
miscarriage,
yeah.
Hagen has to know, which contributes to why Michael's pissed at Hagen. Hagen think about this, Hagen allowed
Her to leave the compound.
her to leave the compound and come, and if you think about the way Tom Hagen has all this information, right? He knows everything about everybody. It's his job. He's not careless. He knows. There's no way that he doesn't know the doctor that, if we just play it out, she knows the doctor Kay went to. He knows. Right? You couldn't just get an abortion then. How would Kay have been connected with that person? Basically, Tom Hagen knew. Tom Hagen kept Kay's secret. And that's part of what
You know why he kept her
fuels-
secret? Because it was Kay's only good scene in either movie.
Damn.
Well,
Jesus, Bill.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's what?
Just went there. Yeah, you heard me.
Best actress of the 70s, probably.
Bad character.
What do you mean bad character? Who do you want
First
to
of all,
see?
My,
be?
my hottest Godfather take.
Are you going to cut this
She's
part
the
out?
weakling.
Can we cut this part out
She's
of
the
it?
Marco Raveroni of the
I think we should
Godfather.
cut out peanut
You can
butter
just say
sandwich
she's the
and
Joe. Just say she's the Joe.
It's a bad character.
I know you.
Why does she like Michael? We talked about this in
She likes
Godfather
him
1,
because
but he
she's a war
disappears.
hero
He
that he-
marries a 16-year-old Italian who blows up, then comes back and is like, it's time for us to get married. She's like, great, I'll leave these school kids behind. She's the worst character in this movie.
All of these people line up behind Michael, even though he is Satan. The same reason that Al Neri and Rocco and Tom and all these people stick with him. He is a malevolent but seductive force.
He also says, like, it's
Logical,
going to
too.
change.
Brilliant.
He's constantly
Right. And
saying,
rich
I'm going to change. This
and
family's going
learned.
to change.
She's dumber than Fredo in this movie.
No,
Just
that's-
run from him.
Well, she shouldn't have told him about the.
He says to her, you have to
abortion.
know who I am and that I would
Yeah.
never let you leave me.
But
He
this
says
is,
that to
but
her.
this is why she tells him about the abortion, because she knows it's the only thing that will
That's true.
turn
Yeah,
him on
that's
her.
true.
Which is why it's her only great scene.
I think but the opening scene at the wedding in 1 is incredible. When
the
they're
scene in
talking
the
and he's
hotel
telling the
room
story
when
and
he's
she's
going to
asking
leave
him
her is
questions, it's
amazing.
brilliant.
She's incredible in these
I
movies.
think she's wonderful.
Amanda
in these movies.
Dobbins agrees with me.
No, that's not.
Amanda Dobbins
It's
agrees
because
with me.
everybody wants to, because you see her as Annie Hall and you think that
Yeah.
she should be lighter, but I think she's a great serious actress. She's a great dramatic actress.
It's like,
Agreed.
I think she has, of the 10 worst scenes in the 2 movies, she's involved in like 8 of them. Like the scene in Godfather 1 when she goes to go see him and Duvall's going, no, he's not here.
That's one of
Hold
my-
on, I'll call you a cab.
That's one of my favorite scenes.
It's so awkward.
That's one of my favorite scenes
Why?
ever. Okay, that look on. Okay, because when he says in the first movie, and he says if I accept that in a court of law, it could be the way that they have to shut it down. That scene is brutal. You can watch the abortion scene over and over again, but you can't watch that
I
scene
just think
because it's
she's
awkward.
good in that scene. I
think she's
it's not a
so
Diane
good
Keaton
in that
thing.
scene with.
To me, it's a Kay Corleone thing.
Oh, I
it's
think
the
she's
worst
so good in that
constructed
scene.
character in the movie.
Two more scenes with her that I love really quickly. In 1, when he comes back from Italy and he pulls over on the side of the road when she's with all of her students,
With that
and
she
they have that
ditches?
moment.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an
Yeah.
incredible moment.
That's an incredible scene. And then the other scene
is?
is in the movie when
Wait, why is it an incredible scene? It's ridiculous.
because
She's like, all right, I'll get in the car. Hey, you 16, 10-year-olds, you're going to have to find your way back to the school. I got to hop in with this mobster that I haven't seen in 5 years. That seems ridiculous.
that's the power of Michael.
Oh, stop.
And then the other one is just at the end
It's
when
ridiculous.
after they've split up, when Connie's like, you got to get out of the house.
That scene's good.
And then
And
it's wordless between them.
Except
and
she
he closes the
lets
door
out
on
that
her.
little yelp
Yeah.
and then she runs away. Yeah.
And the look on her face when the door is closing,
Bad
which is obviously a
character.
callback to the end of 1.
Weak spot.
Oh my God, Bill.
Weak character.
Okay.
I believe what I want to believe.
The Podfather has spoken.
Should mention on the abortion scene, it was Talia Shire's idea to have the abortion, because originally it was a miscarriage, and she said it would hurt Michael more if it's an abortion. And Coppola was like, "That's right, that's awesome." To thank her, he added the scene in which she tearfully asked Michael to forgive Fredo.
He's so sweet and
Can't you
innocent.
forgive
Yeah.
him? He's so sweet and innocent. So that was his thank you.
She's at the center of a lot of amazing stuff.
Next rewatchable
His
scene.
sister, right? Just for people, does everyone know
Yeah.
who's listening that they're
Oh,
brother?
yeah.
I'm saying, does the audience all know that they're brother and sister?
I would also say
How about back-to-back Academy Award nominations for her?
amazing.
quite good in 3 too. Just
Yeah.
FYI. She's quite good in 3.
Also, smoking hot in Rocky 3.
Okay.
No?
Also, her son is
Looks great in Rocky
her
3.
son
I,
is
think
the
you
great
took the
Jason
handbrake off
Schwartzman.
now. Like, so
What are
we
you
should
talking
lean
about?
into it. I just think
Yeah.
you're
1 and 2,
rolling
she's
now.
wearing like stupid dresses, and she's working in
She's wearing stupid dresses.
and she's working in an animal store.
Most of her scenes are in funerals.
Rocky 3, bringing it. Just, I can praise Talia Shire for bringing it in a movie.
She's an attractive woman.
Thank you.
The scene when she at the funeral when she goes to see Michael.
She's
And
is-
then we
really
have to
smart.
try.
She's really
Jesus.
smart actress.
Yes. Woke culture has just ruined all
That's
of you.
not
I can't
what
say
this
she
is.
looks good in Rocky 3.
It's not even really like the Talia Shire appeal. It's like it's a flex by you. You're like out on Diane Keaton.
Right.
I'm out on Kay Corleone. I'm not out on Diane
Okay,
Keaton.
all right.
Pro Annie Hall. Pro looking for Mrs. Goodbar.
Okay.
What else?
All the
So
Nancy
many.
Myers movies.
Pro all the Nancy Myers movies. Vito kills Don Ciccio.
Amazing.
Only for this.
I know.
The
that's-
18-inch
That's rough.
18-inch knife thing.
That's
I didn't
rough.
even know, can a knife do that?
You have to be really strong, I think, right? You have to
Or
be
the
pretty-
guy would have to be
you
really
up the
fat,
stomach.
right?
But you have to
It'd be a
go
lot
through
of
all
in
that
the
fat
front.
and muscle. And
It's probably
all that
just a
stuff.
really good knife.
So I thought that he just slashed him and then stuck it in at the end. Is it that he cut him all the
he
way
goes
through?
in
feels like
and
he
then goes
cuts
all
him.
the way through.
Yeah, he goes
and then
up
that's-
and
that
all the, he
moment
goes
where-
down, he goes into the gut and up, and then he just like wipes it on his jacket.
You ever done that before?
The day is young. if he keeps coming with a couple more of these Diane Keaton takes.
They're not takes. Why are they takes?
Keep going.
Kay Corleone, not a great character. Other people agree with me, including Amanda
self-defined
Dobbins,
it, by the
who
way.
runs
That's
culture
one
for the Ringer.
person.
That's one person.
You self-determined.
This
Earlier
is so
you said-
Trump.
you
You're
said
like,
this is
many
my
people are saying Kay
You go, "This
Corleone
my
is
hottest
bad."
take. The Trumpian thing is he goes, this is my hottest take, and then you go, you're throwing takes, and he goes, what takes? There's no takes. Hey, what's that about?
I love NATO.
Literally,
Come on.
in like 1 second.
Kay Corleone is terrible. 3 exclamation points. That's my tweet.
Sad.
It's sad. Dumb performance.
Many
Bad.
people are saying
Bad.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Next one. We did Connie ask Michael to forgive Fredo, which ends with the hug, and then the menacing look at Al,
Mhm.
which is fucking brutal. Tom and Frankie's last scene. Frankie Five Fingers.
Fucking Roman
Five
Empire,
Angels.
man.
Five Angels, yeah.
That's for me. That's just unbelievable.
Might be the best acting in the 2 movies. Just those 2 guys.
Also,
doing
that's
that.
the writing that's as good as the writing in the Robert Town scene in the 1st
Mm-hmm.
movie. I mean, that Roman Emperor story, I'd say as a writer, like I've tried and failed to do that for 25 years of my career. Like that's the best, most, that scene where they don't say it and they say it without saying it.
Having a cigarette.
Acting, writing, every single part of that scene is just magic.
It's shot through the chain link fence
Yep.
in the prison. And it's like the minute they're in the fence together and all the way through the conversation, Frankie Five Angels and Hagen are in it together. They're still in the business together.
Mhm.
And the minute Hagen walks off screen, the camera stays on Gazzo behind the fence
And the
and
FBI
he's
agent
alone.
comes, yeah.
And then that's it. That's his fate. He is alone. He's dead. He's out of this thing of theirs. And he's dead.
Also, you get the 1
such
second of
genius
Harry
movie
Dean
making.
Stanton.
Yeah,
You get the Harry
comes
Dean
out the door,
Stanton
yeah.
second.
Very, very young, but not even that young. Harry
he was
Dean
never
Stanton.
young.
He's
Yeah.
He was,
never,
by the
never
way,
young.
born at 50.
he's never like Cornbread Maxwell, never young.
And they do the same thing when you're talking about the
Cornbread never looked young. a day in his life, I don't
the thing
think.
with like him pulling the chair up to Roth. It's the same thing when Hagen pulls Frankie kind of to the left to be like, here's the thing: is like these guys used to be given a chance to redeem themselves. You know, if
They went home, sat in a hot bath, opened their veins, they bled to death.
And of course, it ties in, Bill, to what you guys were talking about in the Godfather podcast about Clemenza talking about history.
Mhm.
It's this idea that these people are aware of what it meant to be a fighting person, to be a person engaged in this kind of life of a certain kind of combat, and that they were steeped in it, that they were part of a heritage. And weirdly, it ties to Coppola and Patton, because, Coppola wrote Patton, and Patton is constantly talking about that stuff, right? He's constantly talking about the great battles of these people. And so, this is Francis Ford Coppola believes this stuff, I think,
Yeah.
or the artist that he is. You can find it through all of his work leading up for me to this, which is the apex of it.
Yeah, that's what Pentangeli says. He says it worked. We did it and it worked. Like
Yeah.
that is the whole. And then this is like the end of it working. Really, the movie ending the way that it does, where Michael has turned so darkly, is like the end of something that they had spent the last 70 years building.
Well, because what you know about the end of, let's take it further, the end of the stories about the Roman emperors is that the empire ended.
Mhm.
That these things work for a time, but what ends up happening is the empire falls apart and it's messy and it's horrible. And so this presages, yes, we're going to solve this problem
It's
now.
like the Patriots right now.
Sure. I go Cornbread Maxwell, a little Boston basketball reference, and you
That's how I
got to
felt
come
about
over
the
the
Patriots.
Yeah.
So who opens up their veins?
God willing, it's Belichick. God willing.
Belichick comes in the room and Brady's like,
Actually,
Well,
knowing
the
Belichick,
the hand job is a very Fredo Corleone moment. If we're looking at it, if you think about it, the hand job in the Bentley or whatever.
it's got to be Josh McDaniels is opening up the veins.
Josh
though.
McDaniels is Kay Corleone. I'm not sure why he's here. He's in too many scenes.
It was an abortion, Tom, and this must all end.
Two more rewatchable scenes. The final big 3 death, where you have the incredible high degree of difficulty Hyman Roth murder, which hold that. I don't want to talk about that right now.
Okay.
Frankie dying in the bathtub, just blood all over
And
the place. And then Fredo's coming. They're not really going to do it, are they? The ominous music. Calls Michael Jr. back. He's not going to go on the trip. Uh-oh.
Anthony.
Anthony. Michael's going to be in the little boathouse, wherever the fuck he was. They go out anyway. It's like, yeah, it's just going to be Fredo now. They're going to catch some fish. It's like, oh no. And it's like, no, they're not really not going to do it. And then the gun comes out. It's just brutal.
Too soon for a nitpick
While
about
he's
that
saying,
scene?
No.
While
wait.
he's saying the Hail Mary,
While I was
Well,
saying
I
that,
say Hail
man.
Mary, yeah.
And then,
which is set up just right early. I mean, just set up so beautifully.
Tells that great story to
He
Anthony.
tells the story to the kid.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
and then the flashback ending is the last one I have. James Caan agreed to come back as Sonny, but only if they paid him the exact same amount as the first movie, which they agreed to. And then Marlon Brando was supposed to be in it. For some reason, just didn't show up the day of the shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to rewrite it on the fly and make believe he was in another room.
Kind of works better.
Apparently he was, he felt mistreated by the board of Paramount. Who knows?
Sure.
I'm glad he's not in it.
I think it would have been distracting. And
Yeah.
I think
I think he overpowers it,
I
right?
think he is the specter that hovers over the movie. So if he comes into that room and it's like surprise Vito or something, it's just kind of like, oh. And also, like, if you bring Brando in the movie, I'm like, I want a Brando scene. I don't want him to walk in and be surprised. I mean, I don't know what the scene would have been, obviously, as written, but
They pulled James Caan off the set of Rollerball.
what could
Like,
he
James, put the sideburns back on.
what could he say to Michael in that moment that would have been more powerful than the Robert Town scene? You know?
Nothing. I'm glad he didn't come back. All right. So did I miss anything?
Yes.
Merle.
What-
You missed Merle for sure.
Well, I had Merle in What Stage is the Best.
Okay, we'll hold Merle.
We'll hold Merle. Any other rewatchable scenes?
Yeah, I have a couple here. I really love the Clemenza and Vito stealing the rug scene.
Fantastic.
Just because of the shot of Clemenza with the gun, but
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
just like that whole like Vito being brought into the underworld for the first time.
Also, you missed the number one most rewatchable scene you missed.
What is
For me. I found, unless you said it and somehow I missed it. It's the Don Roberto scene.
Oh, I had that on What Stage is the Best.
I mean, the Don Roberto scene, though, is like I mean, you can watch
The rent
that.
stay the
and
same.
you can just watch that. And in the door, I could watch that door business.
Oh yeah.
Talk about something you can just watch over and over.
You know
and
the
over.
story with that, right?
They fuck.
They fuck with the actor.
Yeah, fuck with the actor. It's the
They
greatest.
put a nail in the thing, and he honestly couldn't open the door and was fumbling with it.
But
And then,
that scene again, because it's like the light early days of being a murderer, but it is
Right.
like the light and funny days. But that scene for me, that's purely just so entertaining, and it's the guy
that's a good
about
one.
gaining his power.
It's the all right, he is the Don now.
He's
He is
become-
in charge.
Yeah.
and the way he manages that scene, and how
Yep.
funny that the way the two of them laugh with each other.
The look that De Niro is giving him.
Yeah, I
without
should have put that
saying
in.
anything,
I had that
that's-
in Age the Best, but you're right.
I also-
It's a
the-
rewatch. You have to have that in a
Yeah.
That whole
rewatchable
sequence
scene.
though, from before he kills Fanucci to the end, when they're having spaghetti and they're being brought each one at a time a bowl of spaghetti, and then he's saying he basically takes over for Bruno Kirby there. He takes over from
Yes,
Clemenza. He's
yes.
like, if I can do this, this is how this is going to work now.
Yes.
You know?
So what's the most rewatchable
I
scene?
have one more. I'm sorry.
Okay, go.
The Senate hearings when Pentangeli comes out and then his brother comes out.
Yeah.
And everything that Gaz was doing in the scene, the way that he is responding to the questions, leading all the way up
I said,
to
Michael Corleone this, Michael Corleone that. I said, yeah. It's amazing. It is.
and then it ends with Hagen, and I think Duvall is one of the great movie yellers of all time. And he's like, Senator, this committee owes an apology. He's like such a voluble dude, and Tom
Yeah.
is so quiet throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
But he it's such a great, and obviously like just seeing his brother and what that means, and the idea of Sicily and this relationship between these two guys.
I had the
totally
brother coming up
unspoken,
later, but
all
that's
that stuff.
good.
That scene is so watchable to me.
But
So what do you
the
have for most watchable?
Senator Geary scene for me. I could watch
Really?
it thousands of times.
In the beginning,
Yeah.
What do you have, Chris?
The beginning. Yeah, the beginning scene.
I think I'm going to go with the Havana sequence. I think I think specifically the Michael Fredo scene at the cafe, but just that entire recreation of pre-revolution and revolution Havana is just unbelievable. So I love that whole stretch, but specifically the Michael Fredo stuff there
I have Fredo and Michael.
me too. In Tahoe,
at the end.
Yeah.
Tahoe.
That's
No,
my-
the
in
and you
Cuba?
see me a day in advance. Yeah, in Tahoe.
Yeah, that's my favorite too.
Okay. What's age the best? Have an incredible amount here.
Do it.
We'll fly through it. Young Pacino and young De Niro being in the same movie.
Perfect.
Amazing.
De Niro spent 4 months studying Brando and learning Sicilian. De Niro, as we covered in the last rewatchables, was almost Paulie in the original Godfather, which I think would have fucked this up. How could you then be in Godfather 2? Thank God that didn't happen.
He read for Michael too.
De Niro.
No, his De Niro read for. Were you saying De Niro was almost Paulie?
Oh no, he read for Sonny.
He read for Sonny, which is as
No,
you've
he
seen
read
that
for all those,
audition's
but-
incredible.
Yes.
He was cast as Paulie, and then he had to bow out, do another movie. He only speaks 8 words of English in the movie.
Yeah, sure. Those are 2 of them. He says, "Yeah, sure."
47 minutes on screen, 122 sentences spoken. Next was stage the best. Merle asking for a cocktail in Michael's office.
You remember Merle?
What a heat check.
You remember
You
Merle?
remember Merle? Yeah, where can I get a drink?
Can I get a drink?
I'll get him a drink. Because then, right? She's
Yeah.
I'll get him a drink.
Fucking Merle.
But no, that's one of my favorite little lines in the movie in that scene is when Michael says,
Love
"I don't
Merle.
know this Merle. I don't know what he does." and he's sitting
I don't
right
know how
there.
he makes his
He's
money.
like, I don't know.
What do you think Merle did? What
I
would
don't
be
know
your
this
guess?
travel agent. But we're like,
No, see, he strikes me as like an out of work adjunct professor. You know, he's
no, he
like,
wasn't.
Oh no,
no
I think
way.
he's
Dumb?
like literally a playboy. I think
Yeah.
he's literally like had a little bit of money,
Ex-actor.
lives on credit cards,
Golfer. Golf
finds
pro?
rich women,
Okay.
gets them drunk.
Golf pro?
I don't think that guy could lift a.
But how about that he
golf club.
talks about
Like,
him
he can
in
barely lift a
third
gin
person.
and
He just
tonic.
talks about Merle.
He's right. He's
That's
right
what
where
the,
you're.
yeah, using the third person for Merle when Merle's in the room is aged very well.
Yes.
Just literally
Yes.
talking about the guy. Like he isn't even there, like, I don't know this Merle. And because Merle's right there, Merle could go, well, ask me anything, Mike. And he doesn't
Merle
say
just
a
wanted
word.
his cocktail. He was looking around. He's like,
And then
they're
they're
Jack and
and what about then their hand hold?
Yeah.
Talk about Gordon Willis
Oh,
when
yeah.
he put the camera
Reaching
for the-
across.
when they reach across
Yeah.
and hold hands.
The thing is,
In
he's
defiance.
so stupid. He doesn't know not to be obnoxious about the drink in a room full of those guys.
Underrated Merle moment too is him kissing Mama on the cheek and the look on
Oh,
her
her
face when
face?
he's
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's so
Yeah.
good. The whole Merle experience.
Mama, you remember Merle?
the
Connie, what did she get married after? Or she's supposed to have been married in between the two
Yes, that's
movies,
the
gotten
divorce.
divorced,
There's like
and
a
now
few.
is with Merle.
Yes.
Merle. Okay.
I don't know this Merle.
this,
I
the
don't know
whole
what he
sequence
does.
of Michael Wire, the drapes open, and then the
Go
gunfire,
ahead.
and Michael. No, I'm not ready to do the drapes yet. And Michael diving for cover and all that stuff, and then finding Rocco alive. That whole section is great.
Can we do just in general? I'd like to point out, Pacino gets a lot of grief for volume changes in the voice now, but this is where it was pure.
Yeah,
This is where it was
agreed.
like, in my home, where my children sleep.
Yeah.
So I pitched a theory to you that something happened to him in the 80s.
that he was replaced.
There was a body snatchers moment where he becomes a different
The
kind of
mid-80s.
actor.
Like it's a guy imitating Al Pacino as Al Pacino.
I think he's absolutely amazing in The Irishman, but he is closer to Son of a Woman. Pacino.
When he comes back in Sea of Love in '89, it's like a different human being.
You're talking about like Beatles, Paul is dead,
Yeah.
sort of a moment.
Yeah, they never really gained momentum
So
on
like
the internet.
something
but-
happened after Cruising, is what you're saying.
Yeah, or what was that movie he made right after Cruising?
The Revolution.
Revolution,
This is
yeah.
insanity,
During
guys.
Oh,
Revolution,
and Justice
he's
for All.
replaced.
That guy, and you could see him become the guy in Scarface. He
Maybe
becomes the
Scarface.
guy in Scarface. It's over the course of Scarface. It happens.
All right, so maybe that's
but
what
it's-
happened.
It happens within Scarface.
I did subscribe
Have
to
you
the
done
theory.
Scarface
No.
yet?
No.
You have to do that right away.
I think maybe that the theory is completely wrong because he's going over the top more in this movie than I originally remembered. He's going loud a lot.
Yeah,
And it is pure, like you're saying, because it's really the first time. I mean, I guess he does it in like Panic in Needle Park, and he does it in some of those movies.
toys. I just want to start like announcing basketball like that, but just being like, Nikola Jokic from Gary Harris.
Michael turning the family over to a nervous Tom when he says, "One thing I learned from Pop: try to think like people around you think." Fucking great advice, great life advice.
Yep.
Michael, we're bigger than you, Steele. I have written down everything Fredo, Fredo's outfits, Fredo's hot drunk wife. I can't control it, Mikey. Fredo's
The
hair.
moment, what is it? Rocco comes up to him. He's like, Mike says either you have to handle this or I do.
And he's like, "You better handle it."
Yeah.
Fredo the fisherman, all things Fredo. Fredo just gets wins left and right, unlike Kay Corleone. Johnny Ola being the young Uncle Junior.
Yeah, Dominic Chianese is amazing, and he's so unctuous.
And it's so funny because the
So-
lineage of The Sopranos, which starts with Johnny Ola as Uncle Junior and Spider as Tony's cousin, and they're just like, we are the 2.0 version of this whole generation of movies that everybody loves, and we're creating this TV show around it. and we're gonna actually use people. Lorraine Bracco.
He does it over and
just
over.
dip in
David Preval from Mean Streets. You know, he does it
Yeah.
over and over again. So smart about The Sopranos.
You mentioned In My Home. That's a What's Age the Best for me. When Senator Gary wakes up with
That's aged the best.
no, the dead lady. Duvall's incredible in that scene. His performance in a scene that's super uncomfortable and weird,
It's
where he's just like, the girl has no family, nobody knows she worked here. It'll be like she never existed. It's like, oh, you're a bad guy too. I
Yeah.
didn't totally
Oh,
And
realize
then
it.
that
yet.
one shot when Al comes out of the bathroom and you're like, Al did this?
Yeah.
This is fucking crazy.
When you that's an amazing that's an amazing scene.
I think
that
you
Al
need that
Neri-
scene because you
but
need,
for me,
you need
that's
to realize Duvall's a bad
to
guy.
me that
Yeah.
scene's age the worst, but that idea is age the worst. But
Not the Duvall part though.
no,
you need
but what I
the
was gonna
Duvall
say
part.
is that we're all talking about how Pacino might be the greatest performance ever, but you can make the argument that Hagen in the two movies is like the greatest performer. Really,
I love
Duvall might be
So
the
good.
greatest
most
actor.
understated great
I
performance.
think he might be the best of that generation of actors. If you really look at the entire body of work, Tender Mercies,
Yeah.
Apocalypse Now, the Godfather movies,
I'm obsessed with him in Network.
even
Obsessed with
what's
him in
the
that- in
what's the
Network.
movie?
Santini.
Crazy. What's the guitar movie with Jeff Bridges?
Crazy Heart?
Crazy Heart.
Crazy Heart,
Yeah.
I mean, even think about that little moment and everything that he brings leading up to that moment in the bar in Crazy Heart.
Seen
For
great
me-
Santini around that time,
yes,
right?
Of course,
Really good
To
in that.
me, he's incredible in that movie, and he's different all the time. But he's got that movie star, supporting actor. He can do anything, and that scene's a great example of it, where he just, all that's left is our friendship. Unbelievable.
Yeah. He's more
Though-
evil. He's smirking. It's not like the Jack Waltz meeting. In the
No.
Jack Waltz meeting, he's like, please do this so I don't have to do something terrible. If you don't do this, something bad is going to happen.
Right.
But the bad thing has already happened in this scene. And he's like, he knows he has all the power in the moment.
Well, Geary insulted his family,
Yeah.
right? And Mike, so Geary brought this on in his world.
I think it's a
Geary
really
brought it on
important scene
himself.
because, as Chris said, in the Godfather 1, it's a horse, and in Godfather 2, it's a real person. And I have felt like in Godfather 1, he was still a good guy. And even like when Sollozzo has him, and you're like, oh man, this is like if a normal person was
It's
involved.
also
in
in
does feel like
Godfather
that,
1,
yeah.
there's
Right.
so much separation between Vito and what they do to Waltz. But like, they cut to Vito after the horse gets discovered and he's just like, okay, good. I'm glad that worked out or whatever. But this is like Tom's there. Like Al is there. They're like Fredo set it up. It's in Fredo's place. Like it is,
Yeah.
it is like they did this to these guys.
More What's Age the Best quickly. We mentioned the drink in Havana. How do you say Benita Daiquiri? Vito and Signor Roberto, which I should have put in the most rewatchable. I have for What's Age the Best, Michael Corleone's IBM stock. Good job by him.
yeah. Yeah.
Was in early.
Wealthy,
Yeah.
wealthy
Really
man.
stepped in.
Yeah. Well, we learn about that in Godfather 3,
That's
how
right.
wealthy he became when he went legitimate.
Freddie's
Novelado.
brother with the evil eye. So good. So that's like the most Italian part of the movie to me, that somebody's brother could fly in from the old country and just stare at his brother, and the guy completely changes.
Frankie. I thought you said Fredo. Frankie,
I'm
you
sorry,
mean.
Frankie,
I got
yeah.
confused when you said
Sorry.
Fredo, Freddie's brother.
Yeah.
Yes, Frankie. Oh, God. Yeah, amazing.
With the
He
little
just sits with the hat.
Frankie, not Freddie.
The
Yeah.
little chauffeur's cap or whatever you call it.
Yeah, yeah.
From a two mule village. Is that what he says?
Two Mule Village. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Guy
two
has
mule
no
town.
lines.
Yeah.
He could have had his own family.
Tom tells Michael he's staying, which is Michael yet again just being mean to him. I guess some justified reasons, but just goes into the whole, why do you hurt me, Michael?
Mhm.
Been loyal to you this whole time. What the fuck?
Vice president of Houston Hotels. It's great.
In a scene set in 1960, Tom Hagen says nobody could kill the president of the United States, and Michael Corleone replies, anyone can be killed. Anyone.
If history is
3
taught
years
us
later,
anything,
JFK. Yeah. Rocco Lampone, underrated. Killed Tatalia and Hyman Roth.
Well, he
It's a
gets
great job by
he
him.
gets killed after killing Hyman.
Yeah, but two good murders.
so kind
two
of
high-profile mobster murders.
not a high usage rate.
Tatalia and Hyman Roth.
Well, we don't know.
That's true.
Maybe he's got a lot under his belt.
And the presence of oranges
Oh, yeah.
could be
Yeah.
in what stage the best and what stage the worst, because it's a little hacky, but I still love it. It's like, oh, that guy has an orange.
I was
Oh,
reading
no.
about
It
this.
aged the best if you just think about 1 and 2. When you take it into him dropping the orange, and 3 is where it gets
It's a literary
disastrous.
signature. It's an echo. The whole movie is echoes.
And I didn't know. I was reading about this that oranges I think to Sicilians represent memory and nostalgia, which I did not know.
And that's
Any
what-
other what stage the best for you guys?
Gordon Willis's photography.
We talked about that.
The evocation of turn of the century New York. The arrival at Ellis Island, the Mashulu, like the pan across the desk. It's like
Amazing.
one of the signature shots in cinema history.
The recorder. Playing the recorder.
Yeah.
Big.
What's age the best for you, Koppelman? What's the number one thing?
The bathtub. I think the scene in the bathtub, the using the history, the decline of the Roman Empire, all that shit in that one moment for me.
I like that he's all out on abortion, but bloody bathtub suicides, like that's age the best for me.
What it portends, man. It's not rewatchable.
Chris.
Wait, it's different, right? It's a different category.
No, it's
Most
fair.
rewatchable and versus
The
what's aged
history.
the best.
Chris, what do you have?
I actually am going to go with the way it looks with Willis.
De Niro and Pacino.
That's what I have.
in their prime.
I have young De Niro, young Pacino. It's like when we did a Book of Basketball pod about the 2012 Thunder, and you're like, oh my God, all these guys are on the same team.
Yeah.
Durant, Harden, Westbrook, and Ibaka. Jesus.
It is
Same
crazy.
Who's the
kinda-
Kay Corleone of that team?
I think it was Nick Collison. Oh no. The Kay Corleone of that team was Kendrick Perkins.
Ooh.
Too many minutes. The smaller lineups were better without him.
It's tough.
I'm
not crossing
my
Kendrick
silence
Perkins.
is not co-signing the Kay Corleone. I just want to be clear.
No, we're
Well,
we're all on.
all right, let's
the same
go to-
page on that one.
What's age the worst other than Kay Corleone? Pacino was apparently a huge pain in the ass. Nearly didn't do the movie last minute, wanted a massive salary, complained about script rewrites, complained about Coppola's slow pace, and apparently said, Serpico only took 19 days. So it sounds like he was really feeling himself during the shoot. It led to the greatest performance of all time. So I think we're in a good place.
Can I share a quick take? I
Yeah.
don't think Serpico's that good. Have you seen
It
it?
hasn't,
recently?
it hasn't aged that well. I think it would
In a-
matter
in
when
a-
it
It's
came
in that
out.
Hall of Fame, but
It
I don't
mattered
I
when
think,
it came
I think
out.
Prince of the City's better.
I agree.
That's
Yeah.
a bad take.
Wow.
That's a terrible take.
You don't
You
like
don't
Prince
wait,
of the
that
City?
Serpico aged poorly, or that I think Prince of the City is
I don't
better?
think Prince of the City exists. Well, I don't. Yeah, Prince of the City's not as. I love Sidney Lumet, but it's not. And I
Okay.
love Treat Williams too, but I just don't think Prince of the City is nearly as good as Serpico. Serpico's about Serpico's about a time, right? So like this cop caught in this cultural moment. That's what Prince of the City misses for me. Serpico's about what happened when these cultures
Sure.
meet, and then this old line corruption and this hippie thing. And when you have somebody who's supposed to stand on one side, but that side's actually corrupt and that side's not. I think there's a lot going on in Serpico, and I think his performance is incredible. It's not a movie I go back to all the time.
I get it. I just don't
but
like
it's
to
really
watch it.
important.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
really crucial.
It's pretty early.
Movie.
It's a movie
Yes.
that you wish it had been made 5 years
in
later.
in a post NYPD Blue world,
Right.
like David Milch. David Milch's version of that would have been better.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I can't co-sign the Prince. We could watch Prince of the City together, but I don't. The moves in Prince of the City are more. You know what's. It's.
I
it's
just
a
like
little bit
living
of a
in that world, yeah.
plodding movie for me, Prince of the City. I don't know.
More what's age the worst? Willie Chichi, fuck you.
Piece
Dick.
of shit. What a piece of garbage.
Scumbag, shithead, fucker.
Buffers. Yeah.
Fuck
there
that
were a lot
guy.
of buffers.
Fuck him.
Right?
He betrayed. He is the true betrayer, even more than Fredo. He knows what he's doing.
But he
Dude, that
comes
guy's
back
so
and says
fucking good.
condominiums in Rocky 2, and it's one of the greatest, right? He's the condominium guy
Yeah.
in Rocky 2.
He's the
Great.
bookie.
But I love that
Yeah.
line in the at the communion when
Even he says condoms, and Rocky
He's-
says
that actor is an
condominiums.
all-time. He's a bad
He's
guy in so many great
incredible.
movies. He's a really fun
when
actor.
He's a good
Fredo
that
and
guy.
when Fredo sees Pentangeli
I
and he's
don't
like,
use
"Oh,
him."
Frankie,"
That's
and the
what
whole
Rocky
can of
says.
peas thing.
Yeah.
And then Willie says,
I don't use
It
him.
was no heart attack.
I have that coming. I want to talk
Okay.
about that.
Oh, that's the best.
His name's Joe Spinell, by the way. Willie Chichi. He's also in a lot of amazing exploitation grindhouse movies. He's the star of like a lot of horror
Chris,
movies.
please come back to that.
To the can of
Yeah,
no
we
heart
got it. I
attack.
have it-
No
I
heart
have it
attack.
down.
No
I
heart
have it
attack.
down.
Yeah.
More what's age the worst? Michael, after hearing about Kay's miscarriage from Tom Hagen, was it a boy? But what kind of fucking motherfucker asked that question for the miscarriage?
Satan does. Yeah.
That's like, oh, you're evil.
But that's the second
Can't you
time
give me a straight
Yeah.
answer anymore?
He asked it twice, right?
Was it a boy? Rocco's plan to kill Hyman Roth. Let's talk about it.
I don't think there's an exit strategy. on
odds
this
of
one.
surviving 5%, 1 out of 20.
He's pretty. I mean, they're
he's-
cocky
I
about
think
it.
I remember somewhere. Is it in the complete thing or in some book that an idea that they had was that he was terminally ill?
That Rocco was.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think that's in something. I couldn't find it this week, but I think if you guys look, it exists.
So on the internet,
That's I believe, I could be wrong, but I remember this from the 80s, like reading about it, maybe in some version that was all put together in one of the box sets, somewhere there was a Coppola note that the idea was he had gotten a terminal diagnosis. They were going to take care of his family if he did this killing. I think that exists on the internet.
On the internet, which, as you know, is always true. Rocco is the head of security for Lake Tahoe. On the internet, there's a theory that he was the one who betrayed Michael and left the drapes open because Hyman Roth, through John Aiello, promised him Nevada if Michael died. So Michael knew that he was betrayed by Rocco. Rocco knew that Michael knew. And the kind of agreement they came to was you go kill Hyman Roth in this impossible mission where you're probably going to die.
I like the terminal illness though.
The terminal illness is good too.
You always got to have a guy on your team with a terminal illness.
Yes,
because you can just anything's possible.
I just feel like
well,
Rocco
as you know,
was,
we used it on our show,
Yeah.
Billions with Donnie.
Right.
Like
That's right.
Donnie was definitely, we had that idea in our heads
I
about
just feel like Rocco was such a good assassin and mobster that I don't know if he just waltzes into
Miami
the
International
airport like, I'm going to shoot Hyman Roth and then I have to get through these 58 people.
I mean, that's what Jack Ruby tried to do though.
True, but Jack Ruby was a patsy
Sure.
to cover up JFK's assassination
not
for the
here,
mafia.
Bill. Not on this
No?
podcast.
Oh,
this
sorry,
is
wrong
already going to
podcast.
be the longest podcast.
Sorry,
of all
wrong
time.
podcast. Another would say it's the worst for me is there's a deleted scene, which you mentioned earlier, where Michael gets his revenge on Fabrizio from Godfather I. It's actually on the internet. It's a really good scene.
I love that scene so
and
much.
my guess is they just didn't know where to put it, but I wish they had put it in the movie. I think it's important.
Me too.
'Cause
I love that scene.
At that point, you've taken care of anyone who's ever fucked with him. Any other what's age worse for you guys?
I figured this might be a good time to talk about how not vague but opaque the Roth Pentangeli blame stuff is in that first third of the movie when Michael's going to visit these guys and he's telling each one of them like it was Roth, it was Pentangeli, that I'm going to do this.
Just as a strategy?
I think just in storytelling way, since he never tells anyone else what he's doing, you're basically trying to figure it out as he's doing it.
But that's I mean, for me, that's the thing the movie does that makes it so rewatchable. Literally, the thing is that you have to see if you can think like Michael Corleone. It's like a first-person game or something of watching Bobby Fischer play chess.
Sure.
You are put in a position of having to figure out, because like Michael yelling at Frankie Five Angels, following that scene with Roth, and he's yelling at Frankie Five Angels as his, I think, in the same way, they talk about this in the book, in the same way when he is talking to Carlo at the end, they call him in the book a weak Don, but the two guys with him think he's a weak Don for not trusting his instinct and his information that Carlo definitely did it. And so I think what he's doing when he's yelling at Frankie is just looking in his eyes, and the way Frankie responds, he doesn't plead, he doesn't beg, he doesn't say it wasn't me, convinces Michael that he's right. And I think that it just, you start unpacking this, and I think it's amazing. Instead of I think a worse movie tells you everything. A worse movie, right? The Bruckheimer version of this movie, the guy, Michael, tells you ahead of time, I'm going to go to Hyman Roth and I'm going to tell him this. And then I'm going to go to him and I'm going to tell him that. Or someone explains it. Here, you're forced. It has to be entertaining enough to keep you along for the ride as you're figuring it out.
It's definitely,
I love that description. I think that's right
you
on.
definitely convinced me, like right now, the only thing that throws me off is Aiello.
But that's an ad-lib. And then Coppola liked it and kept it.
But when
And
you
I
see
agree.
it doesn't make any sense if when
they're
he
gonna
says
kill him, why say
Michael
it?
Corleone says hello, if it's the Rosado brothers and Hyman Roth and they're going to kill him, what difference does it make?
It's the worst moment in the movie. That moment of Aiello
Right.
is the worst moment in a way. But then
It's the most traditional mobster movie
But it
moment
doesn't make any
it
sense.
doesn't.
saying Michael Corleone says hello, if you're going to kill Frankie Five Angels, you don't need to do that unless it's for other people to hear it.
Well, okay, so here's one small case for it. Maybe Rosado is trying to twist the knife one last time on Pentangeli in his final vanishing moments before death, just to make him feel like he was betrayed by his own family.
See, that
And
was my interpretation.
That's the
But the
only reason that he does it.
but it's really for the audience. It's Coppola saying, so Danny, it's one of those great moments where an accident happens, and it's incredible, right? So he says it. Coppola likes it, says keep saying it. Coppola decides to keep it in the movie with Richie Marks, the editor, and Murch, who helped, and all those people, right? They decide to keep it in the movie. And it has the effect of further obscuring for us and making us do more work.
Right, the truth.
So that's that's sort of what's positive about it, but it does create a lot of story problems.
I forgot one. What's aged the best? I thought Talia Shire was really good in this movie.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
much
actually,
better than
like,
one.
There's like an arc to her.
Yes.
I didn't think she was good in one. But fuck you!
But also has
in two, she's good.
In
She
the final
deserved the
third of
nomination.
movie, she's so
Yeah.
amazing.
she's incredible. And the last scene, the flashback, it's so heartbreaking to kind of
Yes.
see this innocent girl get introduced to the guy that's going to essentially be the first step in the destruction of this family.
Yeah,
It's like bringing Carlo in. Yeah.
Casting what ifs. Coppola offered James Cagney a part in the film, but Cagney refused. I don't know what the part would have been.
Senator?
I think it would have been Roth.
Would have been Senator Geary?
I
I
assume
never
it would
heard
have
that.
been
That's
Roth.
amazing. What that acting style would have been like in the movies.
God, yeah.
Hard for
But
me to picture.
I thought it was Roth because
No.
Roth is Lansky and Cagney is the gangster hero villain of the 30s and 40s.
Apparently, Peter Sellers was also considered for Hyman Roth.
Oh my God.
That's a different movie.
Yeah.
But he could do anything
Glad
in
that
a
came
weird
out.
way. That guy was such a genius.
Was he ever in a movie this grave though?
We
This
talked about
serious?
Kazan, and then we did Clemenza and Godfather 1. We got to do it again. Richard Castellano
Have to do it.
declined to return after demanding he could write Clemenza's dialogue, which is just insane. And then 2, apparently he had lost weight and didn't want to gain it back.
Hmm.
And then 3, wanted a lot of money. One day before filming starts, they bring in Michael Gazzo as
So,
Frankie Five Angels.
He disputes this. There's a New York Post interview with him. And it's a little bit sad because he's like answering phones at his friend's garage. Like he's
Right.
like, that's where he's working. And he disputed all of that. He was
What does
like,
he say?
he said that he was told by Coppola to lose weight because he was going to also play the younger version of himself. And then at the last second, Coppola was like, no, don't worry about that. Just gain the weight back because
In
you're.
1917?
He was good. This is
I
what he claims.
I never bought that story.
He also
But he does not deny that he was supposed to be in it and he quit the movie, right?
his whole thing is that he was like Clemenza wouldn't have betrayed the family, and it's like like he basically was like I don't.
He doesn't.
But Frankie Five Angels
but
doesn't betray
he's
the
supposed to
family.
be the Pentangeli character.
I know,
He
but he
doesn't.
He doesn't
does
betray
not
them.
I'm just
betray
saying
the
what he's
family.
saying.
He
Well,
doesn't.
but he doesn't.
He
It's a
doesn't betray
mystery.
them.
He slits his wrists.
Yes,
but
he-
Frankie Five Angels was going to portray the family
Until
and
his
then
brother
changed
showed
his
up.
mind
So
last
it's only
minute.
because he thought Michael Corleone
confused.
had him murdered.
but he said Clemenza wouldn't do that.
Well, can we do this now? I was going to do it later, but let's do it now. Is this movie better if Clemenza's in it?
I love getting one more character in the story. And even though he's doing mostly what Clemenza would have done, I like getting
Can I make
one
the
more
case for
guy.
Clemenza?
Of course.
yes.
Because you're going backwards with Bruno Kirby as young Clemenza
Mm-hmm.
and him with Vito, and that's the tide. Tessio's already dead, so you can't have him. Clemenza's the one tie to his dad, and if he's the one who's betraying everybody, I just feel like it's weightier.
If he comes in now, he's not as good. He's not as versatile an actor.
No.
And I mean, it's funny because Gazzo was not really an actor, but what Gazzo brings, the warmth, what you gain is this idea that you guys, Sean and Chris, were both talking about the warmth of the old Italian way, the family thing. That's just not. Clemenza brought something different, and we saw Clemenza do those murders with Frankie Five Angels. We hear him talk about Mort and wanting to kill people, but we don't see Frankie Five Angels do anything bad. We saw Clemenza kill people.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Clemenza strangle Carlo. We saw so
Take
Clemenza
cannoli,
coming
yeah.
in has
Hello,
a different
Carlo.
energy. But we saw him shoot Paulie. Like it has a different energy than this guy who seems like your crazy uncle who you love. The warmth that Pentangeli has. The real one is that Duvall didn't, and it's the reason that you and I can't watch 3 is no Tom Hagen.
they just should have paid him the $5
Pay for the $5 million. You got to pay the
Just give
$5
it to
million,
him.
and life is entirely different. Pay the $5 million.
It's a totally
You
different
must
movie.
pay the
him
$5
not
million.
being in there.
It would have been a different script. I mean, that part, the BJ,
but
George
the-
Hamilton
this is
part
where you
would
start
have
with
He
been-
just
the
like
heart
walks
attack.
in and out of hotel rooms
Yeah.
for 3 hours.
But this is where you should talk about no heart attack, right? Because this is Castellano. This
Right.
is Clemenza. And the idea being that the Rosado brothers killed him.
Michael, why don't you tell that girl you love her?
That's the thing is Clemenza too is like a mentor to a lot of the figures in the first movie. And Frankie Five Angels doesn't have that same relationship, but he is.
But he creates his own awesome character.
He does.
Which I'm with you, but
And
I would have rather
tonally
Clemenza.
has like a thing that the rest of the movie somewhat lacks, which is like that energy, that like, I get the peppers and the sardines,
Yeah.
let's go, and like that kind
Yeah.
of thing. Nobody else is acting like that really in the movie.
Deion Waiters award. We have J.D. Spradlin, who was in one-on-one, North Dallas 40, Godfather 2, and Apocalypse Now in a 5-year span.
He's incredible in Apocalypse Now.
Unbelievable.
In the opening scene when he gives
He's
the
unbelievable in
assignment.
one-on-one.
Yeah.
And one-on-one, he is coach all the way up with the red
Oh
hot,
my God.
all the way
It's
with
so
the red hot
good.
poker. But that, because he had said it earlier, you
I
know,
want your scholarship. And he's
Yeah.
basically the same guy in each movie, but each character feels different. I love him. Bruno Kirby is young Clemenza. Roth's assassin in Cuba, one outfit.
Yeah.
When the one outfit
Mr.
assassin.
Turtleneck, yeah.
And then my personal choice for the award for Deion Waiters, Frankie's brother from Italy.
Oh,
No
interesting.
lines, one look on his face, and he's fucking unforgettable.
I was gonna put Fredo's wife in there.
Oh,
Deanna?
I love Fredo's wife.
She's amazing. Mariana Hill.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
funny.
And because
Fredo's-
I think that in the book, right, she was with Johnny Fontaine, and then she goes with Fredo.
But we also have to, guys, we got to talk for a few minutes here about Frank Severo.
Yeah.
We have to talk Frank
Yeah.
Severo because somehow this guy, and I
Jenko.
want to say, if you don't watch his Instagram, have you seen his Instagram? Frank Severo is Carbone in Goodfellas,
Oh, yeah.
and he's Jenko
Yeah.
in The Godfather II. And that guy with that face, first of all, he's the guy he's an amazing part of 2, and I guess he's in Wedding Crashers too.
So he's
No,
still
not Wedding
alive?
Crashers, The Wedding Singer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not only is he still alive,
How has he not been on Billions
but
yet?
not only is he still alive, well, when you watch his Instagram,
That's why he
the
hasn't
man
been on.
takes himself, and as well he should, by the way, he's a wonderful actor, wonderful man. He's accomplished something no one, we can only dream of being involved in such projects. But if you watch him, you got to go to his Instagram because he takes all this very seriously. And he puts his name in quotes all the time. Like, I'm Frank Severo. Hey, friends, is Frank Severo? And he'll talk to you and tell you how he's going to make his veal parmesan. And for me, he is, first of all, that he talks that Italian. He's there in that scene with Don Roberto. And he's the one who explains, he does all this heavy lifting early in the movie when he's explaining about Fanucci. He just
Black
does
Hand,
tons of
Yeah,
heavy
yeah.
lifting. Oh, sorry. I got to go to one more thing that doesn't last. That one
Age the
more
Worst.
sort of, what's that?
Something that aged the worst.
Age the Worst, which is that Vito Corleone, our hero, just lets Fanucci put a knife up to the girl's eye, and he lets his friend take him away from it. And he doesn't. Can you imagine a movie hero now not getting in the middle of that?
Reminded me of Michael though.
He just walks away.
Gotta know when to
Strategic.
strike. Yeah.
Exactly.
Gotta know.
Strategic.
He just walks away.
Yeah, but he
And
gets his
maybe-
revenge.
Maybe the eye is going to get poked out. It's a weird moment.
He's not Robin Hood though, you know?
Right. No, I know.
He's
It's
angling
just-
at
So
something else.
you were upset Janko wasn't in the movie enough.
Well,
Because
Janko,
he's so big in the book.
Janko in the book is. I mean, if, you would have had to have I'm not. I think Frank did everything he could do. Mr.
Yeah.
Severo. Again, I salute Frank Severo for his work. He
Are
did
you
everything
afraid
he
of
could do. Yes, yes, I am.
Jesus.
No, it's more I respect. You know what it is? 75-year-old guy sitting in Las Vegas. I'm not going to run him down. He's been in 2 of my favorite movies of all time, and he's
Right.
incredible. Just because his Instagram is entertaining to another generation of people. I'm 5 minutes away from being that guy, so I'm not going to I don't want to make fun of him. But I'm 53. How far is 75? You know what I mean? But
We got to go to Apex Mountain.
Go.
Coppola, yes. I mean, he literally had never had more power than this. He's telling people, oh, I get to do the San Francisco Opera.
Yeah.
All this stuff. Like, this is
Can
definition
you
of
believe
Apex
it? They're
Mountain.
letting me do the San Francisco Opera.
Yeah.
Apex Mountain, here I
It's
go.
like, and I'm writing the Great Gatsby script. They're like, okay, dude, just make Godfather 2, please.
And De Niro.
Pacino? I'm going to say yes.
Let's take a look at the run.
Hey, it's an amazing run. I just think coming out of this
Did
movie.
he have it? We didn't give it to him for the last movie, right?
No, I think we said it was this movie for him. Best performance, but biggest ability to do whatever he wants after this movie.
It's Coppola and Gordon. I'm not to be and Gordon Willis. Although actually Gordon Willis in some of those Woody Allen movies did work just as good.
I would give it to him for this. Cazale?
Yes. Sure.
I vote yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Lake Tahoe?
I've
You
driven
gotta
by.
talk to Stormy Daniels about that.
I've driven by that house. You can drive a boat right by the Pacino house.
Most romantic time to talk about Lake Tahoe when this movie comes out, or now? Lake Tahoe's kind of on a comeback, right? I don't know. I don't know the answer. Merle?
Nobody's taking my bait on Stormy and Donald Trump.
That's right, 'cause
That's where it all went down.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Merle, what? Dion Waiters?
Apex Mountain.
Apex Mountain for Troy Donahue, or whatever this guy's name is?
Yeah, Merle.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite fact about Troy Donahue is that his real name is Merle Johnson. He named him his real name.
But also Spradlin, right? Even though he was
Spradlin.
amazing in
Apex Mountain for Spradlin.
I mean,
yeah.
Frank Geary is that's Apex Mountain.
Paramount?
Whew.
Yeah, they made the best movie of all time. Yeah, sure.
During the heyday of
The Knicks.
not
I mean,
that
when-
many studios. They're in charge of most of the cool stuff.
Did they own the Knicks during the championships? No.
Horrific Oscar results? I
You know,
think this is
Paramount put
Apex
out Top
Mountain.
Gun, Bill.
Yeah, Paramount also put out the Transformers movies, Bill.
It doesn't have to be the Apex Mountain. Horrific Oscar results, yes.
Oh,
Any other Apex Mountains? Mafia movies? All acting?
Apex Zone for movies.
Apex Mountain for
I
movies.
love that.
That's good. Let's give it to movies.
Thank you. All right, movies.
I mean, this is an amazing time for movies.
For mob movies, though. Apex Mountain for mafia movies.
The Joey Pants That Guy Award. We mentioned Willie Chichi. We mentioned Merle. Rocco, I have no idea what his real name
Aiello.
is. Al Neri.
And Jenko.
There's
Jenko.
25
Harry
that
Dean.
guys.
Dominic Cheney's.
Yeah.
I have to go with Merle just because I just see, if I saw him in anything else, I'd be like, Merle!
He was in a lot of stuff in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, he was like a famous dude.
Yeah.
I just like it when Harry Dean Stanton's like, Frankie, let's play hearts.
Troy Donahue, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Guy's
he gets the
bleeding out.
huge name check in Greece.
Yeah.
Troy
As for
Donahue.
you, Troy Donahue, I know what you want to do.
My mom claims
Don't
that
go
he
to
was
bed
a
too-
huge
he was a
heartthrob. and
heartthrob.
He was
everyone
a
in the
giant.
60s was in love with him.
He was a super
So probably not
important
his.
figure.
He was like a Tiger Beat kind of guy.
The Linda Partridge, they knew overacting. I'm giving this, you're going to be mad, to drunk Frankie asking for help with the brothers.
With the blazer, one arm.
Finishing
rolled
with
up.
the old man had too much wine, only because I do feel like he probably got sloshed before that scene.
But that has.
I love that.
But that leads up to Cheech Port.
He really dials it up.
No, it's got to be Danny Aiello.
There's some dialing
It's got
it
to be
up.
Danny Aiello. It's got to be Danny
Ad-libbing?
Aiello.
Okay, fine.
Ad-libbing that life. It's like they're full overacting.
I think Dina Corleone is probably the overacting.
Oh, how
She's-
great!
she's
That's
going
how you know
for it.
the power Coppola had. He already has a 3.5-hour movie, and he sticks the scene of her screaming in the woods.
Yeah.
There she's screaming in the woods. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need that.
Outside
you
my
totally
window.
need
Outside my
it. But you totally need it. But you could see if they're sitting there with the execs, and they're like, well, could you at least cut the scene of the wife? We've already seen her, and she's screaming. What do we need her screaming for? And Coppola was like, we're going to leave the screaming in.
I also
Staying
want to
in.
bill for overacting here. That's
Yeah.
what we're doing here.
Yeah.
The bongo player at the Cuban sex show. That guy, real scene chewer. It's like, relax, we got you.
It's hilarious.
Those guys, none of those guys are wearing shirts. They're all playing their.
We've done a lot of the half-assed internet research. Just a couple things. In an early version of the script, an ongoing story was Tom Hagen having an affair with Sonny's widow. And then they left the mistress
With
comment
Teresa,
in.
right?
I always thought it was kind of attractive. I don't know.
In the first movie, yeah, she's beautiful.
great. But
yeah.
she's in the second movie.
And she's in
deleted
3,
scenes.
right? Because she's Vincent's
Yeah.
mother in 3, right?
G.D. Spradlin apparently wrote many of his own lines, including his anti-Italian speech to Michael.
I don't buy this.
And then you mentioned the Moshalou.
Mhm.
Also visible in Rocky and in the ending of Blowout. And is now a floating restaurant in Penn's Lansing, Philadelphia. There you go, Chris.
Congrats, buddy.
Thanks, man.
All right, so doing the recasting couch. That's where we can recast any part of the movie with an actor. Ironically, I had Jenko written down. Harvey Keitel as Jenko just kind of fits in with the era and all the actors and the points of career they're all in. I
But
think
he's not Italian.
Huh?
He's not Italian.
Well, neither's James Caan.
Yeah, but Jenko has to speak a lot of Italian. Like he speaks Italian the whole time.
You don't think Harvey Keitel could have learned some Sicilian?
Well, as we find out on Apocalypse Now, it doesn't sound like Harvey Keitel and Coppola got along that well.
Yes, maybe we'd dodge a bullet. It feels like somebody famous from that era could have been Jenko. Because even
Yes.
like having Bruno Kirby as Clemenza is kind of fun because I know him
It's
now as
great.
When Harry Met Sally, Bruno Kirby, but it's like, oh yeah, he was also young Clemenza.
Could Pesci have done Bruno Kirby's part?
Yes.
Ooh.
Hard yes.
Yeah.
Or
right?
Jenko?
He's not that
Really,
sweet.
I've never really seen young Joe Pesci.
He could have done Django though.
Yeah?
That's what I thought you were saying, Django. Yes.
Anyone else? Who else would you want in this movie instead of a part?
I want to
Anybody?
hear how you're gonna fix Kay Corleone.
Right. Yeah, who are you going to cast for Kay?
I don't blame Diane Keaton for
Well,
that.
it's
I
just like,
blame
is
the character.
Meryl Streep changed the game here?
No, it's a poorly constructed character. They don't give her anything to do.
I disagree.
She's a great actress.
It's an evocation.
I have
What
no
happened to
idea
all
what
the
she likes,
women in
Michael.
those situations
Yeah.
is the collision of a woman in the 50s and 60s trying to become her own
Right.
person, feminism.
Still not
going
a great
into the second
character.
wave.
Not that interested in her.
Okay.
We did 15 rewatchable scenes. She was in one.
Well, it's a movie full of men.
Well, she's not good. The character's not good in it.
Okay.
She's good in it.
Okay.
When are you gonna? Where's your drapes bit?
It's coming right now. Picking nits.
I'm fucking waiting.
I have some nitpicks. How does Vito go from being a dim-witted young boy to navigating a voyage to Ellis Island to surviving in New York for 10 years by himself to suddenly finding a wife?
He's not dim-witted in the book. He's not dim-witted. He
In
just
the
doesn't
movie, he's
speak.
presented as
He's
dim-witted.
No, just as mute.
Yeah.
He just doesn't speak. He's smart.
The mother
Smart,
says
cagey, and
he's,
crafty.
he's-
Maybe the mother
Well, the
doesn't have
mother's
the
lying
greatest
to the-
handle on
The
it.
mother's
yeah.
lying to the mob guy the mother knows that the kid will go get revenge. The mother's lying to the mob guy to save the kid's life.
There it is.
I don't think that's a nit. I can't give nit.
I think it's poor casting then.
I can't give nit.
I want a little more from
poor
the 9-year-old.
casting?
I want a little more from the 9-year-old.
still
I
gonna
want
be
to feel like
like,
she
should
might
we-
come
Should
back.
we put Jacob Tremblay in a time machine and send him
Yeah,
back to go do
CGI
young
him.
Vito?
Do some Haley Joel Osment de-aging. Okay, how did Clemenza die? And then they go, that was no heart attack. It's just kind of thrown in. It's like, what? What?
that's the-
How did
It's a
Clemenza
shot
die?
at Castellano.
But
That was
that's
how
the
I
beef.
perceived
I
that.
think that's the beef. That's
like,
at the
"Fuck that
heart
guy,
of
we're
the
not even
beef of the
mentioning him."
Rosato brothers, though. The Rosato brothers killed Clemenza. That's why.
Yeah, but can't you give me 30 seconds about that? In
Yeah, but you-
Godfather II, Clemenza's an essential
you
character.
just said that only a day before they started. So this is one of those things where, so if the truth is only like a week out or a day out, Castellano said, "Fuck you, I'm not coming."
Yeah.
Now you've written the script. You have to change over Frankie Pantangeli and you have to deal with it. And just on the day, you're probably like, what the fuck are we gonna do? I know. Say that was no heart attack, and we do away with it and we just move forward. But yes, I could have used a scene about it. I would have loved it.
30 seconds.
I would have loved it.
Going from Clemenza to Frankie Five Fingers, I think it's not the flaw of this movie because I think this is the greatest movie of all time. But if you were going to pick it apart, you'd be like, where did
We've
Frankie
never
come
heard of
from?
Frankie
He
Pantangeli
wasn't
before.
in the first movie.
Yeah.
How is he suddenly this important?
I agree.
It's
I
tough.
agree. Especially because he takes over the house, and you know how important that house is.
Yes.
So you know that he must have been important to the family,
Love
but not
that scene.
hearing
We all
about
know
him.
Pantangeli means five angels,
Five
right?
angels. Yeah.
Yeah.
He keeps saying
That
five
also,
fingers.
just the
I'm just letting the audience know.
when Michael is in the office and he's like, my father had a desk right here.
Oh, it's a great moment.
We used to have to be quiet outside. It's such a great story.
Any other nitpicks before I get to my biggest nitpick?
No, I got my turtleneck guy out of the way.
All right. It's Drapes time.
I've been waiting for this for months.
What time is it? Okay. I want to make sure I don't go 40 minutes on this.
Go as long as you want.
Michael gets back to the bedroom after the big ceremony that day. Kay's in bed. Was she like reading a book? He's getting undressed. And she goes, Michael, why are the drapes open?
No, he says it, doesn't he?
No, she
No,
says it.
she says it. First of all, she's been in the fucking bedroom for an hour. Like, wouldn't you notice the drapes are open? Usually, like, somebody goes to bed, they're like, all right, I'm going to either leave the drapes open or closed. I'm going to put this light on that light. Misses the drapes completely. Then he's like, yeah, that is weird. Why are the drapes open? It's like, is it weird that the drapes are open? When I'm in my bedroom, am I like, oh, the drapes are open? What the fuck? That's weird.
Well, you're not
Like, who even notices the drapes?
No, you're not a. I mean, you're not a wise guy.
That is true. To
You're
the
not a
best of my
wise
knowledge,
guy.
you're not a wise guy.
You don't
This
have
is
guys
a
patrolling
true-
your
this is a real
compound with
thing.
machine guns.
With a high school that I went to, there was some people whose families were not just reputed; they were in the mafia. And
Levine?
That's funny. Levine went to school 10 minutes away, and no, this girl that I was friends with in 9th grade told me she went over to this other girl's house. I won't say their names, and the other girl's father eventually did get killed, but they said you can't stand near the window. Basically, my friend was like, I'm so freaked out. What do I do? The girl I was friends with, I said, why? She said, because this girl told me when I was at their house, I can't stand near the windows. And I was like, why? And there was some business problem with her father. And I remember saying to my friend, like, don't go to that house again.
Yeah.
So I think that's legit. I think that
Okay, so what? So Kay's
Sean, you
conditioned
think
for
that's
the
legit,
drapes to be
right?
closed.
I do.
Why doesn't she know the drapes? I'm just starting there. It's
that you're correct. There you're correct.
it's a flaw you notice that after 300 viewings.
You have a much bigger, more important question though.
So now it leads to who opened the drapes.
Right.
Yes. And how did they get in the bedroom?
Right.
How'd they get in the bedroom? How many people are even in that house? They have Rocco as the head of security for Lake Tahoe. Who's even coming in and out of the house? Who would be seen? Why would the drapes be the plan is like
what information did Fredo get? So we have
the
to back
plan
up.
is
Yes.
We have
right.
to
So
back
the
up.
plan is so and so will open the drapes, and then after the thing, we'll kill Michael.
So did Fredo give the plans of the house, or did Fredo open? Because Fredo did one of two things.
So that this
He gave
is
the
the
plans
big
of-
question.
The Fredo gave the plans of the house to them, or he opened the drapes. It's one of those two things because
Fredo's
Or
one of the
both.
only people that could conceivably be wandering around to different rooms in the
Fredo,
house.
the phone, because what other information? The information he gave, because he said, you guys lied to me. So we know he didn't think it was a hit, but we know that he gave them information that allowed them to take the shot at Michael. So what did he give them?
So-
he either gave them the plans or he opened the drapes.
There's
Or
three scenarios.
third,
Or it was just a huge fucking mistake that they made in the movie. That it's.
But what did Fredo
Why
do
would she
then?
say
But what
it?
did Fredo do?
If she doesn't say, Michael, why are the drapes open, and there's just a hit,
It's just a cinematic moment where we need the camera to move to the window before the gunshots are coming in. That is that. It's not like mistakes don't happen in these movies.
Here's where I landed. I think it's a director fuck up.
Which part?
Michael, why are the drapes open?
Just that line. But
so you
but
think
somebody
it's
did
like
have to leave the
Michael
drapes
Corleone
open.
says hello? You think it's like
I think
a
they
loose
do
end?
it as a way to build drama for him to be like, yeah, why are the drapes open? Oh shit, dive to the ground, and it's like a movie moment.
They want you to know the drapes. They want you to know
want me to be-
somebody.
there's
They
this-
want the viewer to, but there's more than that, right? They want the viewer to understand why Michael said there was a betrayal. Because without the drapes open, you don't know when Michael's in there. You don't
But
know when
here's
to
the
shoot.
problem with the drapes, though. Once you see the movie 300 times over the course of 45 years, you're like, who the fuck opened the drapes? Like, if it's Fredo,
I think the
why does he say to Johnny Ola, you guys already lied to me? Because he would be opening the drapes for them to kill Michael.
There's a lot of people at this party. I think it's plausible that someone gets in the house and that someone does it. That
But
isn't
what
Fredo.
does Fredo give them? Is what he's saying.
I don't know.
Made the plans then.
Yeah,
They would have said we need to know, or what's left out. We know it's not that he made the introduction of Johnny Ola to Michael, because Michael, he lies and says he doesn't, to Michael and says he doesn't know him. So Fredo's involved. There's sort of no doubt Fredo's involved in that.
I don't
event.
understand what Fredo got out of this.
money.
and feeling and a promise of.
But what did he give to Johnny Ola that he
Either-
got paid for? And
either
then,
plans or he opened the thing. That's it. If someone has
But
something
if he
else,
opened the thing,
tweet
he
at
just-
me if you have something else at Brian Koppelman.
if he opened the drapes,
I want to hear it.
if he opened the drapes, then Michael's justified murdering him. Because he tried to murder Michael first, so now I don't feel as
But he
bad
says
that
you
killed
lied to
Fredo.
me. Now the lied to me.
So he
seemed-
said you lied to me, but I still don't know what he lied about. What did he lie about?
Well, he might not have known.
Maybe
so
he
if
was like,
Fredo
we
is-
just want to scare him. I don't know.
Yes, if Fredo's, that's exactly right. If Fredo's dumb enough that he's like, open the drapes so that we can. Open the drapes like in The Irishman when Joe Pesci. If you haven't seen The Irishman, I'm going to do a mini spoiler but when Joe Pesci says to De Niro, don't kill that guy, just scare him, and he shoots up the car.
so that's the theory on the internet.
So what he could have been, what it is they said to him, open the window, Fredo. We're gonna, so that we know Michael's not in there, so we can shoot it up and scare Michael to do what we want him to do.
I don't buy that. I don't believe that.
but
that
that's
could
the
have been
only,
what
but that's the only
but what else
plausible
makes sense?
explanation.
It doesn't-
Otherwise, he tried to kill Michael,
It
and now
doesn't
he
make
deserves to die.
The way that Fredo is acting in the scene in Tahoe does not indicate that he knows that there's anything this dangerous is going to happen.
I don't know. He's acting fucked up, sad, drunk, can't deal with his wife. Think about how he's acting.
But it doesn't explain why he would help Johnny Ola kill Michael.
What, do you think he didn't do anything for Johnny Ola? He obviously
I
did.
think he gave him
Play it out.
information.
What? Let's talk about what that is.
This is great. This
Play
is
out
what
the
I
string.
wanted. I wanted us
Play
to
out the
argue
string.
about this. 'cause
Michael
I'm
gets
so confused by it.
assassinated that night. Hyman Roth and Fredo then go into business together.
I mean, they're going to kill Fredo. You know they're going to kill Fredo.
right away.
Sure, yeah, but let's just
Fredo
say
doesn't
that's
know
the
that.
promise for
Right.
Fredo is that he gets to take over the family. That he gets, because he
What they
says
said
at
to
the end,
Fredo is, we're going to do some, I know that that's what they said to Fredo. We're going to do some things and you're going to be in a position of influence.
sure.
They didn't tell Fredo, we're going to kill your brother. I know that they didn't say that to Fredo, those words at that
Yeah.
time. Because when Fredo says, you lied to me,
So what did they lie about is the big question to me.
He's so shocked when he gets the call from Aiello in bed. He's so upset to even be receiving that call because he's so blown away by the fact that they put a hit on his
and
brother.
he's so guilty.
Yeah, and he's so guilty.
He feels so
So
guilty.
that's why the Drapes fucks it up, because the Drapes makes it seem like it was, he basically set them up.
So
he
Fredo opened the
and
drapes,
was like,
does he
Michael's
deserve
there.
to die?
No.
By the
By
brother
rules-
shouldn't kill you, but by the rules
Well,
of
you're
By the
the
rules of the
Justice
movie.
rules that you're
by the movie,
outlining.
by the no, you can't kill your brother and you can't kill the innocent sex worker. You can't do those things.
By the rules of the movie, he deserves to die.
But you can also forgive. A king can forgive, right? That's the thing about being a king. A king can forgive. So Michael could have forgiven him, but
But
that's,
you're not- are you
that's a fairy
Italian?
tale. That's
Are
a
you
fairy
Italian?
tale. I'm as Jewish.
I'm half Italian and my
I mean,
mom is all Italian.
I'm an atheist, but I'm a Jew.
The drapes,
Sorry.
if Fredo opened the drapes, he deserves to die.
Because you're half Italian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Grudge holder.
Italians hold grudges. Fennessey knows.
Well, it's
So do the Irish
That's
in
part
two
of
different
They
ways.
certainly
It's
do.
more like just the grudge to be guilty makes somebody feel guilty for the rest
That's
of
my
their life.
favorite part of the Godfather pod is you guys talk about the difference between if it were an Irish family or not. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's a deeper streak of sentimentality in the Irish, I think, and that scene between Connie and Michael when she's like, "I forgave you. Can you forgive Michael?" And he says,
Can you forgive Fredo?
Fredo, excuse me,
Yeah.
Fredo." That's the whole movie. That's why Michael is
Well, he's
so
Satan
evil.
now.
Yeah, that's why he's so evil.
But this is the flaw of the movie after 300 times watching it is I still don't understand. What did Fredo know? Who opened the drapes? Why did he feel like he was lied to? I still have no answers.
And you feel like you could ask if you
That
ever
feels
got
like
Francis Ford
simply
Coppola here and you asked him, he might not have that answer.
That's what I think.
So the
Yeah,
other thing,
I'm with you.
this goes
I
back.
think that's what it is. He
Might
doesn't
not
know.
have the answer.
This goes back to your. Well, who had the Rocco theory? Who was talking about Rocco is involved?
Bill.
So,
Head of security in Lake Tahoe goes to find the
but
two
the other
killers
thing is,
and they're just dead
he
immediately.
says, and he says, so yeah, and they get their throats slit, right?
Yeah.
And what does he say? He says, "These guys, I don't recognize them. They're out of New York," which is, I think, immediately supposed to associate them with the Rosados or Pentangelis. It's one of the two. I assume like they look in their wallets or something like that. But that was a weird line too, where it's like, I don't recognize these guys, but they're from New York.
None of it adds up. And I still don't understand. So Michael does I know it was you, Fredo. What does he know?
It was Fredo. It was you, Fredo, who gave them by the codes of the world.
Gave them what information though? What bedroom he sleeps in?
Yes, you gave them. You either open the. I know you, Fredo, let the let the killers have the leverage to get the jump on me in some way.
But how Fredo is
And Fredo
dumb.
did do that.
But Fredo's a moron. But how dumb can you be to be like, hey, Fredo, just open the drapes. We're going to scare your brother.
Well, it's even worse than that, though, because we learn how dumb Fredo is when they're at the sex show
Yeah.
in Cuba, and he's
had like
talking out
3 fucking
loud
Cuba Libres and
about
he's
how
just-
Johnny
yeah.
Ola brought him to this party, and Michael is standing 6 feet away.
That the
Because
head
of old
drop.
Johnny.
Yeah.
Old Johnny. Yeah.
We'll
He's
never
an
have an
Old
answer.
Johnny know all these places.
Yeah.
Best quotes, we've already listed a few, just a couple that we didn't do. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
Have
Is
more
all-time.
douchebags in the world said this is the business we have chosen than any
is the
other
business we've chosen.
line. I mean, literally, people in every business have said
Yeah.
just after doing something horribly douchey to somebody else, have said this is the business we have chosen.
I don't feel like I have to wipe out everybody out, Tom, just my enemies. Sean's actually said that to me before.
I subscribe to that theory.
He's been dying from the same heart attack for the last 20 years.
Love
This is
that
just
line.
great. He says it twice.
Pretty
This is
good.
the business we've chosen. I didn't ask who gave the order because it had nothing to do with business.
Pretty good.
I mean, this movie has 10 of the most famous movie lines.
One of my
probably all
favorites
time.
is, even though it's in Italian, is "Let me wet my beak."
Mm-hmm.
Let me wet my beak.
Don Fanucci? Yeah.
I used that in a podcast recently, actually.
did?
Yeah.
And I also really love "I don't want anything to happen to him while my mother's alive." It is the fucking most savage thing ever to say. Like when he just goes up, he goes to Al and says that.
It's pretty good.
We've already mentioned a bunch of the best ones. though.
Yeah, we're good.
You know, I despise your
gotta keep
masquerade,
moving.
the dishonest way you pose yourself, you and your whole fucking family. That's the great stuff.
Could this be remade as a 10-episode Netflix show? Fuck you. Probably unanswerable questions.
First time we've ever
question.
given a fuck you.
I'm fuck youing my own question.
Wow.
Koppelman's gonna get uncomfortable. Did Pacino actually hit Diane Keaton in the abortion scene?
No.
Do you watch that scene?
Actors are really careful about that stuff. They really talk it out.
It seemed like he accidentally hits her at it. Watch it from the 298th time.
I don't think
Otherwise, it's like,
why didn't you ask him when you had him on the pod?
This is like,
Why didn't you ask him when you had him on the podcast?
Why don't you have Diane Keaton on the pod and you can tell her what a shitty job she does in The Godfather?
She's not coming on.
Can't believe you
Get
fucked up
Pacino
our
back.
relationship with Diane Keaton forever.
I
Here
know.
at the Ringer. It's tough.
I don't blame her. I don't blame her. Just
So
like
you blame Coppola.
I don't blame her. Just like I don't blame Ben Simmons for being on the wrong team with the Sixers.
And by the way,
Christ.
it's
do
how
I
we
think
can't.
he's a
By
good
the
player?
way,
Yes.
it's how we can't blame Gretchen Mol for Joe.
Oh, wow.
It's all on me. It's all on us. It's all on Dave and me.
But
Agree
that's
to
true.
disagree.
I think it's all on Dave and me. Yep.
That's true.
I
You've
think
admitted it,
It's
though.
on Coppola. Yeah, it's on us. It's on Coppola.
Poorly
If
constructed
you don't
character.
love Kay, I love Kay. I think Coppola did a great job.
I thought he did a great job as well.
Whatever happens in
Diane
that,
Keaton, come on the watch.
Come on the moment with Brian Koppelman.
whatever happens, that is the most realistic punch of the 70s, especially when you think this is a movie franchise that when Sonny punches Carlo, misses him by 7 feet
Yeah.
in the first one.
Sure.
And this one, this is
The
like
worst curb stomping.
this is
until
like
the
Bruno
Irishman? Yeah.
Sammartino against superstar Billy Graham level, like how they did it. We were like, oh my God, this is going awful.
There's some good ones in Rollerball too. The original
Rollerball is amazing.
Rollerball is the original Rollerball is as by the way,
The first great sports movie.
that is. I know you can't do. No one's going to care to do
no, I'm
rewatchables
doing
about
it.
it.
You and I are doing it. I'll fly to New York.
We'll do it next time you're
Yeah.
in New York.
Jonathan.
We'll do it, Jonathan. And the
Jonathan.
pills, dude. Nobody will. I mean, no one
It'll
will
be
listen
5
but us.
people. James
But
Caan,
we're doing
5 other people.
I'm so doing it with
I'm
you.
so
I love
it
that movie
foreshadows
so much.
everything that happens to football over
If
the
you
next
guys,
45 years.
if you fucking
so
guys
doing
did
it.
Godfather 2 in December, and then the next one was fucking Rollerball, the statistics of this, the downloads of the show would be like Black Friday on Wall Street. It would
Craig,
just be
ever
like
seen Rollerball?
he doesn't even know.
Original.
though, he's never heard of
not the
Rollerball.
remake.
Bill has been polishing this precious jewel, the rewatchables, for years.
It's going to
Years.
end
Get
with
to
the
Rollerball.
Treating it
Rollerball.
like the Hope Diamond, only to smash it into a million pieces on the
I'm
ground.
going to ask an honest question.
Have
of
you
Sean
seen
Fennessey?
Rollerball?
Have you seen
Rollerball? Yes, I have seen
Let me look
Rollerball.
at you for a second.
Yeah.
I don't think you have. I do not think you have. Nope. And I got it too. He's not seen that whole movie. You've not seen that whole movie.
It foreshadows.
I honestly
think
have
I
not seen
have.
Rollerball.
It
I've not.
foreshadows every awful thing that happens with the NFL over the next
With
45
all
years.
team sports.
Yeah.
And the
It
owners,
foreshadows
right,
all of it.
the-
It's
Don't,
incredible.
don't step on your own pod here, man. I'm just going to save you from yourself. I mean, just save this for the
gotta
most
save it for
listened
the
to
Rollerball pod.
rewatchables
Fair
ever.
enough.
Rollerball.
Anyway, good punches and rollerballs. All I'm
We
saying.
need to
punches.
launch like Dark Ringer, where it's like all the shit that we know we shouldn't do,
Yeah.
but we put it all on Dark Ringer.
that's where we put cruising.
That's the version of the Ocho from the old days. That's the Ocho.
no joke. Yeah. Dark Ringer is the
More unanswerable was Michael justified in murdering Fredo? We'll never know.
My
In the-
unanswerable is I want to ask the three of you guys this. Scott, I asked this. I wrote this. I have to know. I've thought about this forever. Let's say Michael lets Fredo live. Would Fredo have betrayed the family again?
No.
Because that's the predicate reason why he has to kill him. It's not the revenge. What he really thinks about this kind of thing is
Yeah,
that
you
he
can't
would,
let this.
you can't
yeah.
let this guy.
You got to cut the cancer out.
Would
The same
Fredo
reason that
have?
Don in Sicily needs to
That's
kill
correct.
Don Vito.
Would he have eventually had to betray the family again because it's in his nature to be having been stepped
That's a
over?
good question.
The interesting
the
thing
unanswerable
is
for
that
me.
based like just the research is it sounded like Puzo was like he would never do it. He was the one who put in the wait till the mother dies thing
Love it.
and was resistant to Michael killing Fredo.
So he thought Fredo wouldn't betray the family again.
I guess not. I mean,
Or he just thought that was an
But it's a good
unforgivable
unanswerable.
sin to murder
It's a
your
good
own father.
unanswerable question.
Yeah.
I don't think he would have because he seems so relieved to just be back in the mix.
Just fishing.
Yeah, just fishing.
I was kind of, there are a couple other things that I was wondering around the Fredo stuff is, and obviously I'm not like, I can't speak to like what it must be like in one of these families, but
Tell us about the history of Italian Americans.
no, but I was wondering like nobody in the house is like, I don't know if we should do this. Like none of the other guys, like they just,
Well, they couldn't.
I guess not, but like where's Tom and all that? Like I know Tom is sort of being phased out at again at the end of 2 when he gets caught like going for
but the whole
different
point of the
jobs.
mob, then I have to say, like when you read the real books about it, and you know this, that order was given. That wasn't a discussed order.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's an order that was given from Michael to Alneri quietly, with hardly a word spoken. There wasn't a board meeting. It's not like you guys deciding if
That's
you're going
how
to
we're
do
gonna
a
get rid of
Kung
Fennessey.
Fu Panda episode of
I'll
this.
just look at Chris and he'll know.
Right.
But then what if I'm missing? What if you're just like staring off into the middle distance? And I'm like, it's now time. It's time now.
Is it?
Am I gonna
Well, that's that
get
great
pushed?
moment in The Irishman when he says it was a bad hit.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the great moments of that movie is when he goes, it turned out it was a bad hit.
Yeah,
This is a flaw of Godfather 3 too, is the fact that Connie is still
hanging out.
in Michael's life.
We're not-
She's basically like his.
We're not discussing Godfather 3.
She's
No,
basically the Tom
Rollerball has
Hagen.
more
one.
to do. Honestly, I can justify talking about Rollerball way more than G3 on this pod.
So this is what was on the internet, and I don't know if it's true or not. I should have mentioned it when we were talking about the drapes. In the original script, allegedly, Hagen says Fredo thought it was going to be a kidnapping, not a hit.
Mm.
So Michael says, I want you to reach Fredo. I know he's scared. Have one of our people reach him. Assure him there'll be
Kidnapping
no
of
reprisals.
Kay or Michael.
Hagen says to Michael, my information is that Fredo thought it was a kidnapping. Roth assured him nothing would happen to you.
I mean, that is also completely unforgivable. That is just
Yeah.
Completely unforgivable.
that's insane.
It's almost worse than leaving the
And
drapes
also, you don't have to
open.
leave the drapes open for a kidnapping.
No.
That would also
So
have been
that's
cool.
why I didn't believe
that would have
that.
been cool because it would have paralleled the Salozza stuff with Michael. You know, that would have been a pretty neat mirror image.
More unanswerable. Are we sure Cazale wasn't better than De Niro in this movie? Are we sure?
What do you mean as young? What
They
do you
need
mean?
each other.
Just in general.
They need each other.
Did this movie create the Hail Mary in football? I'm going to make the case.
That's awesome.
1974,
Mhm.
Godfather II. 1975, Drew Pearson.
Pearson.
Vikings,
Star
Cowboys.
back to Pearson.
They call it the Hail Mary.
Yes.
Did Fredo create the Hail Mary?
Did you invent this?
I did.
You came up with this?
I did.
Bill, you still
This
got
is
it.
why,
This is
that's why I still got
This
it.
is why you
That's
still
really
got
good.
That's why I still have it.
This is like your Cotton Club.
Thank you.
People had been saying that. Well, I'm going to say no. And I'll tell you why.
Had they said it in a football game before
But I'll tell you
1975?
why. Did Tom Landry call it the Hail Mary?
I don't know.
Because
didn't do
that the
enough
play was the
research.
play called the Hail Mary by Tom Landry, who coached that team. I'll tell you why. Because Tom Landry, as you know from those commercials, had a personal relationship with God. So he was someone who knew about Hail Marys because he did commercials all about his personal relationship with God. Now, that wasn't a Catholic relationship with God, right? Because of the proselytizing. But he did have a relationship with God, which makes me think if he called it a Hail Mary, he knew ahead of time.
Was it a broadcaster who used the phrase first, or did it come from the
I think
mythology
it came
of
from the locker
play?
room after the game.
Okay.
They
that
said it was
called
a Hail Mary.
after the game.
Huh.
In this piece on DouseCowboys.com,
Not to be trusted.
One of your favorite websites.
they did not call it the Hail Mary. Oh, Drew Pearson said it after.
In the locker room.
In the locker room after I caught the Hail Mary.
And he's like,
I think Fredo's responsible.
and then Drew Pearson was like, why'd he open the drapes?
And Preston Pearson was like, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Last unanswerable. Is the saga actually the best way to watch this movie?
The chronological order?
Yeah.
I was telling Brian before we started, I don't think so. I don't like to watch it that way. I think the going back and forth, especially in
pretty
2, is
great.
essential.
I love the complete epic.
It's
Of the
pretty
2
great.
movies, not the third. The complete epic of the first 2 movies is amazing.
So starting with
You just
It's not better than
start-
The Godfather 2, but it is a great thing.
It's
like
pretty
if,
great.
If you've done this like as the 4 of us have watched this movie 300 times, it's really fun
Yeah.
to watch the other way too.
also when like AMC or
'Cause
somebody
additional
has it on
stuff.
for like 24 hours
I
and
think
they're
they
just
should show
running
more
it on a
often.
loop.
Yeah.
So
It's like going to your
there
favorite
was a
restaurant
channel
where you
that
order
was-
the chicken parm every time, but one time you're like, I'm going to get the fish.
if there was a channel that was only The Godfather and The Godfather 2, I would like sometimes watch that. Like,
Oh,
I would watch that
Honestly,
channel.
like if we have a golf channel, why don't we have a Godfather channel?
I would watch that channel with like interviews, interstitials. Oh, by the way, then we could have my guy who played Carbone and
He could just do his-
he could do his cooking show.
show, yeah.
on there.
Yeah.
He could be making his thing.
It just seems like on TNT, it should be on every day from 12 to 4.
Isn't it also a testament to the singular brilliance and greatness of these movies that we can even have this conversation? That you could have a conversation about, you know what? If you just play them chronologically of all the scenes, it's fucking amazing. And then if you do it the way Coppola made it, it's fucking amazing. Like there's no other movie you could do that with. There's
It's
no other
true.
2 movies you could do that with.
So the reason I don't like to watch it in that chronological succession is this is me showing my ass as much as I can about 2. the De Niro stuff is my least favorite part of all of the first two films. Now I understand
You made it. That's a hotter take than the.
No, because when we did the most rewatchable scenes, they were almost all Michael Corleone scenes.
It's essential to two. Most of it is
I love that
brilliant
stuff so much.
but to open the movie
In Sicily.
it's not that shotgun burst that I need with the wedding in one, where I need to be thrust into this universe in that way. The sort of like the patient way that he goes.
Well, because it's sad because this woman lost a husband. It starts with this woman losing a husband and a son.
And then herself.
And
I
then
think
she
could have
gets
remarried.
killed.
She looked great.
She gets murdered.
Somebody else in the village.
But she gets
would take a
married.
crack.
She gets married, killed very quickly. She gets blown away by these.
Didn't seem like
think
there were a
she
lot
should
of
have more
marrying
faith.
age men in Sicily at that time for some reason, you know?
What uses Italy better, one or two? What
I think I
movie
like-
makes
I
you
like-
want to go to Italy more when you watch it?
One,
it just
obviously.
seems like it's
One,
like,
right?
yeah.
because it's full of underage brides.
No, because it's just you get to see more of the countryside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Hell of a one.
No.
No.
We're at the end. Who won the movie?
For me, it's the same as one, which is Coppola, which is just like confirmation of one of the 10 most important filmmakers in the history of the medium.
Yes, Coppola won. The only other answer is, I think two other answers are De Niro, because De Niro announced himself as the next major movie star. Like there was no question from that moment on, Robert De Niro was a movie star.
Yep.
And he did it all in Italian. But Lee Strasberg, because there's always this question about whether a teacher can really do it.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
And Lee Strasberg, who hadn't done a performance, like that was not what he did. And then Lee Strasberg just lays it down in a way where he just lays that performance down and like you never
It's like
doubt.
Brad Stevens just climbing on the court with the Celtics,
Right.
hitting 5 threes.
Right. It would be like that. Where it's just like,
Is that your dream?
That'd be amazing.
but it is like, then this guy comes in and he's just like every bit as good as like you're saying Al Pacino at the top of his game. You never feel like Strasberg's overmatched. There he is, shirtless, whole man, and he's killing it. So I'd argue for him and De Niro.
Not Mama Corleone or Mama Andolini.
Mama Andolini.
No Mama Andolini. I vote for Pacino.
I'm going to go.
I think it's the greatest performance I've ever seen.
Do you think, though,
He's the first thing I think of when I think of this movie is Pacino.
this is a related unanswerable question, and it's relevant because of The Irishman. Was there any part of Pacino that was mad after this movie because Brando officially gets to be, or excuse me, De Niro gets officially to be the heir to Brando? Because he plays young Brando and then he wins the Oscar. And then Pacino has an amazing career after that, but the movies that he makes after this movie are not as good as the movies that De Niro makes. They're not as iconic. He does not have the
But
same...
Scarface is only a few years later.
Which is a great movie, but he does not have the Scorsese run. He does not get to have Raging Bull. He does not get to have Taxi Driver. De Niro is one of the three.
I think
I
that the
would say that-
major, I think as much as that though, is the way in which De Niro is able to manipulate his body in a way that Pacino, I don't think ever really does that. Pacino
He tries. He makes
in-
Bobby Deerfield and
Yeah.
he makes Injustice for All, and he tries to change stuff up. He does Cruising and
Justice
Revolution.
for All is incredible.
But it's his career. This is not a judgment on
You know
Al
who wrote that?
Pacino.
Barry Levinson.
Hmm.
And his writing partner at the time, who is a woman whose name I have to remember right now. But
Chris and I are in on Cruising too.
I love Cruising.
That'll be the 200th episode.
you're out of
It's a
order.
tough sit.
It's a great movie.
Wait, I want to say what for one the movie.
Yeah.
I want to go a little bit of a zag and say Cazale and Duvall, like the soul of the movie. I think.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
All right.
Who
That
who
was
do you-
it.
You think
I
it's
said
Pacino?
Pacino, yeah. Well, we did that, and I think that's the new longest rewatchables of
Take
all
that,
time. But it
Wolf
should
of
have
Wall
been
Street.
Brian Koppelman. It was a pleasure.
I'm so glad to have done this with you guys. Valerie Curtin was the person who wrote And Justice for All with Barry Levinson. I don't want to leave her out. Sorry.
Great. There you go. A writer till the bitter end. Sean
Yep.
Fennessey, thank you.
Thanks,
Chris
Bill.
Ryan, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Bill.
for listening to the Rewatchables. We're back one more this year. Talented Mr. Ripley. And then we have a very special trilogy for you guys coming up after that. So stay tuned.